the final part of William Bramley's The Gods of Eden. You're listening to Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
Nailed it.
Thanks.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents, to Brothers of the Serpent podcast, coming to you somewhat live in a very strange way from the Tangent Cube of Science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. So we've been having crazy storms here. What was it? 2-inch hail? I mean, what was the hail out there? I wasn't there.
All I know is when I was driving to work this morning, there were piles of hail on the side of the road.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it looked like it had snowed. They were just...
Wow.
It was 9:30.
Yeah.
Piles of hail.
Holy crap.
And I finally stopped and grabbed one chunk right before I got to the orchard. Just a big old chunk full of little... And most of them were, like candy size, little like centimeter diameter.
Ball bearings.
But there were a few ping pong ball size ones in there.
Wow. Yeah. Well,
and it hailed again at like 3 p.m, and there were some ping pong ball size guys coming down.
Oh, man. Yeah, so not good news for us farmers.
That's right.
Our crops are all just getting beautiful and...
pretty much wiped out.
Yeah.
We're going to have some grapes. We had hail netting on there, but the wind was blowing so hard, it smashed the net against the grapes and then pounded the outside of the net until the grapes exploded.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
So there are, under the netting, we lost probably 50% of the berries just busted.
That's what happens when you're farming, though.
And the canopy...
You fight the elements.
Yeah, the canopy is just wiped out.
Decimated. Yeah.
But that'll come back.
Right. Yeah.
The leaves will come back.
The leaves will come back.
Man. Sorry, guys.
So now it's what they call disease pressure. It increased the disease per pounds per square inch on the plants.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I guess we don't have to worry about birds as much. Oh, man. Yeah, it's terrible. So the storm came in yesterday, and we were actually getting ready to podcast yesterday. And for those of you who are not in the Discord, we've been announcing this on the Discord for the past week that we were going to do this last part of the Gods of Eden series live to the Discord chat. And then I'm driving down to the studio last night to get ready to start the show, and my phone starts going crazy. And I look at it, it's like, tornado warning, take shelter now. And I'm like, holy crap, what? I've never seen a tornado warning out here. But anyway, we get down here, and then we start connecting, and then the storms come in and shuts our internet down, and then we basically had to turn off the studio. So we did hang out with the Discord for a while. We just chatted with them over the phone in a dark studio in the Tangent Cube with all the lights out because the stifling was going crazy with everything turned off. And then we come back today to try it again, and the internet is still not back up, and we don't know why. But anyway, we're here, and we're doing it. We're pushing through anyway. So let's go ahead and do Space Weather News. The keyboard worked. Yes. From spaceweather.com, noctilucent clouds are intensifying. The first noctilucent clouds, or NLCs, of northern summer have arrived, and they are better than expected. NASA's AIM spacecraft is monitoring a huge blue cloud pinwheeling around the North Pole, while skywatchers in northern Europe are reporting electric blue tendrils in the night sky. And something flary this way comes. For the past 2 days, Earth-orbiting satellites have detected a series of B-class solar flares. The source is hiding just behind the sun's northeastern limb. The flares are probably coming from a sunspot, but we can't see the hidden sunspot. But we can see its magnetic canopy towering over the edge of the sun. In 24 to 48 hours, the underlying blast site will rotate into view. Whatever it is, its high latitude suggests that it does come from the new solar cycle 25. B-class solar flares are considered to be minor. Only during a deep solar minimum, such as the one underway now, would such flares even be newsworthy. At the top of the solar cycle, many months can go by with no flares at all, and suddenly B flares are interesting. But more could be in the offing, so stay tuned.
That's cool. I can see the...
Yeah, you can see the...
That's cool.
Let's see. Current spotless days. The current stretch is only 26, but we have 117 total in 2020. So we're staying up there in the 79% of the year has been spotless days, which is more than all the other years during this minimum. And this current condition, solar wind speed 303.1 kilometers per second, and the density is 7.2 protons per cubic centimeter.
That's cool. So today, when I was at the orchard, we had a gentleman by the name of Bill Blackman.
Oh yeah,
who is he's an owner of a winery, William and Chris Winery and Vineyard here in Texas. He is a consultant for the grape growing and the winemaking out there, and he was out there hanging out with us through the hailstorm that came through today, and we were just talking about these weather patterns that we've been seeing. And it was really interesting because the owner of our vineyard and orchard was asking him, like, have you ever seen anything like this? And he's like, yeah, this has happened before. But one of the freezes that we had, which we're calling the Halloween freeze, it was in October. It went from being in the 70s or something and then just dropped down into the teens. Yeah. And so the trees didn't have a chance to harden off like they normally would, and it really devastated them. So Bill's telling us this story about the last time they'd seen any type of weather changes like that. It had been 80 degrees consistently, and then suddenly it went down into the negative degrees Fahrenheit. Like from 80-degree weather down to like negative 14 or something like that. Yeah. And this happened like 25 years ago. And I was just like, that was the last solar minimum.
Yeah, there you go.
And so we ended up talking about that. And I was like, we are actually in a deep solar minimum right now. And we were just talking about the weather patterns and how weird this is. And then he brought that up. I was like, wow, yeah, that's basically when the last one was.
Right.
Pretty cool.
So the snake pit says maybe yours is peaking just a little bit.
My mic.
Maybe he just back up a little bit, or that they're saying too much gain, and Russ is peaking a little bit.
That's me. Okay. I'll get that fixed. Okay.
I didn't know if I should pass a note or.
I'm just shouting into my mic. I'm peeking it out, guys.
Yeah, I can stop that. So
Kyle can stop it.
All right. Well, then I guess I made a good move mentioning it.
Yeah.
I wanted to pass a note like we were in school. I have the note.
Now it should remain level no matter what we do.
There you go. All right. Well, I have a bunch of emails. I'm definitely not going to be able to get through all these.
Yeah, we ain't got time for that.
Well, I'm not going to do news stories because my phone is broadcasting to Discord.
That's right. That's true.
Not gonna mess with that.
Well, this one's from Tom. It's called Eden Stuff. And it says, "Hi, Snake Peeps. Despite myself, I have been listening to and enjoying your scuba diving through this book. It appears to me that because most cultures around the world throughout history, accepted and not so much, acknowledge themselves as followers of some religion, regardless of flavor, secret societies are a very straightforward and simple method of ensuring continuing belief. Monarchies throughout history are seen as descending from the gods, and even in more recent history as at least representative of the church/religion. Great work. You guys are doing a great job. Just as an aside, you mentioned in the book the author's description of the Catholic/Protestant conflict being best known in Ireland. I would say, as a caution and perhaps to offer a real-life explanation, the conflict in Ireland was very political, dressed up as religion with all the usual collateral damage. And enough from me. I'm running out of episodes, guys. So get to 3 a week ASAP. Be well, Tom, the Irish guy. Snakes.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I totally believe you, and I think that the other idea was Bramley's way of looking at it.
Yeah. And I think what Bramley is trying to point out is that all this is basically political stuff dressed up as this or that.
Yeah,
that's what it is in the end. You know, when the religion becomes the ruling class, it's political.
Yep.
So, but yeah, you're right. You know that you can easily label this conflict as Catholic/Protestant, and that's too simplistic. But it's never simple, but I agree. Yeah, it was definitely political. And label it. And we were talking about that several times. I'm just like, he would label these people as this or that, and I'm like, that's a little simplistic. You know, there's
especially when you don't have a choice whether to be that label,
right?
Because it's the government.
Yeah, which is not what was happening with the whole Ireland Catholic Protestant thing. I don't think that those were theocracies at that time because that was modern. But still, I agree that it is simplistic. Let's see. What else we got here? This one is from Srinivas. I don't know how to say the name, but he says, guys, just found you and you are amazing. Going in depth. Kudos. One small favor is, you both have a lot of fun while talking and have a lot of jokes. But when we listen to the podcast, it is overwhelming. Thank you for your podcast, Sri.
Thanks, buddy.
Too many jokes, he says.
Well,
So overwhelming in a good way or
I don't know.
overwhelming in a bad way? Like he's hurting because he's laughing so much?
I'm not sure. I'm
Look, hey, Sri, go to the website, read the glossary of terms.
There you go.
Look at the encyclopedia, and then come back. Start at episode 2. And by episode 40, the jokes will make sense.
That's right. Yeah. And I mean, I can tell by the way he was writing it that that English isn't his first language. That might be why he's having trouble with the jokes.
But hey, thanks for listening.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, for sure. Okay, this one's from...
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, this one's from Mark. It's called Thank You. And it says, Snakes! I discovered you a couple months ago. I'm about halfway done with them all. Keep them coming. Your breakdown of topics has been a work of brilliance. You're on such a path of teaching the truth to the world. Keep teaching. You are so good at teaching what I have felt my whole life. And then he says, a while back, episode 122, I think, you had a listener write in about how your podcast helped him through a dark period. Your podcast has helped me tremendously. Your clear unraveling of the obscured has been such a breath of much needed air. You have helped so much in me making sense of the universe. I have complex PTSD, childhood trauma, and then a career in the fire service left my nervous system shattered. So keep watch on the watcher and stay healthy, brother. He says, it almost killed me, but then I discovered entheogenic earth medicine. Without a doubt, that saved my life. I have healed in ways that are astounding. That also created a spiritual enlightening, and that journey has led me to your podcast. Your telling and understanding of the Hermetic in these modern times is brilliant. You weave works with a deep understanding of mathematics, astronomy, historical religion, astrophysics, geology, and common sense into a presentation of illuminating truth. With your work and Brothers of the Serpent, the work of Dolores Cannon, and the work of Dr. Stephen Greer, I feel I know humanity's past, where we are now, and where we are going. Thank you for your work, which has helped soothe my battered soul. In Longhead Brotherhood, Mark.
Man, thank you so much, buddy.
Wow.
And Watcher, you hear that?
Yeah.
Be careful out there, buddy.
He told us to keep an eye on you, buddy, because you can get PTSD.
Yeah, thanks for that. We'll definitely keep an eye on the Watcher.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he kind of keeps an eye on us.
Right. I mean, he's kind of the Watcher.
But, yeah. We'll keep tabs on him.
Right. Okay, let's see. I gotta scroll through these here.
You're on probation, Watcher.
Yeah.
Can't find his headphones. It's totally against the rules. Not allowed to lose your headphones.
Okay, this one's interesting. He says, long heads and maybe why they were long. From Leland. Hey, my fellow snakes. I wanted to reach out and share this YouTube video of Anton Petrov. It's about the changes in our brains from prolonged space travel. Pay attention to the part where he talks about the pressure buildup for the increased amount of cerebral fluid, white matter, and the pineal gland. Pineal gland. He definitely spells it pineal.
Okay.
But you're right. It is the pineal gland. It could be mind-blowing, pun intended. Keep slithering down the same path, my friends. I have enjoyed your catalog and many, many expansions to my vocabulary and brain. Hopefully, I won't need a larger skull anytime soon, though. From
great.
Leland. Yeah.
Hey, that is a perfect example of how to send a link to a video to Brothers of the Serpent.
That's right. Especially because there's no link at all.
Oh, okay.
In the email. Just tell me what it's about. That's totally great.
That's the point. Like he wants us to watch a video. He gives us the gist of the video.
Yeah.
Right? Basically what it's about. Go check it out. I'm interested. I'll go but if it's just a link,
right.
nah.
Not going to work. Yeah. All right. This is from Birch. Oh, Birch. It's called Hard Sci-Fi. He says, hey, you guys, have you read Seven Eves by Neil Stephenson? This is some real hard science fiction. I would also recommend Cryptonomicon and Reamed by the same author. Let me know, because there might be a power-up headed your way, and I didn't want to send you any objects that were already in your inventory.
Hey, man, that copy of Cryptonomicon's pretty old.
It is pretty old, yeah. And it's the second one I've owned, and it's still severely damaged. I haven't read that one by Neil Stephenson. I've read a lot of his books, but I haven't heard of Seven Eves.
The one that I didn't, the most recent one, I actually got the audiobook of, now I forgot the name. I'll think of it later. It's the Thousanders, the Hundreders. They like go. I don't think you've read it either. Anathema. Or yeah, Anathem. Yeah, that's it. That was really interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't read that one yet either. I have read the Baroque Cycle, the Quicksilver, and all those, and the Diamond Age, which was really fantastic. And
Snow
Crash, which was excellent. I mean, that was like straight up freaking cyberpunk sci-fi right there. Yeah. With ancient Sumerian weird Enki stuff mixed into it.
Mm-hmm. But Cryptonomicon is just freaking awesome.
God, yeah, that's definitely in the top 5 books of all time. So entertaining. Okay. This is from Jonathan, called Coiled Connections. It says, hello from Fort Worth.
Hey.
I just wanted to call attention to an interesting connection I noticed listening to podcasts on your YouTube channel. In episode 111, Anomalies Part 1, there was a story from Chico, California in the 1920s of mysterious stones falling from the sky or being thrown with no source for a protracted period of time. A thorough search yielded no satisfying cause. This has a connection to an episode you guys did. I looked for it, but the episode number eludes me, regarding a group of men who went missing much more recently. You had mentioned a few places, but the name Lumpkin stands out because it's an unusual name, which made me look it up. So he's talking about the disappearance of those 5 guys that I talked about in one of the snake bites.
Okay.
He says, it's close to Chico, and the other locations you mentioned are even closer. In the episode, they had driven up a mountain road. They had no reason to go up, and there was corroborating evidence for a guy who thinks he saw the missing men's vehicle when he pulled over to sleep in his own car. One or more of these missing men was found dead, locked in a camper or a shed surrounded by things that they could have made a fire with and food nearby. That's right. And then he like died of cold and starvation, even though he had food and stuff to burn nearby. It's a strange case. He says, I wonder how many such connections one could find by doing deep dives into stories of strange occurrences from different sources and different categories of weirdness, such as UFOs, missing persons, anomalous weather, or hauntings, etc., but sharing the same locales. We might find many more places where weird things occur over long periods of time, other than well-known mystery spots like the Bermuda Triangle, Skinwalker Ranch, or the Bennington Triangle. Now that my interest is piqued, I'll be on the lookout for more such connections, not just on your podcast, but on all the sources I follow. I enjoy your podcast immensely and look forward to not just the compelling subject matter, but the great banter, puns, and dad jokes. Thanks so much, some dude in Fort Worth.
Awesome, man. That's really cool. What you're onto there too.
Yeah,
man.
and I agree. I used to say earlier on in the show that earlier, like years ago, that while we're talking about this stuff, I have all these other things kind of floating in the back of my mind, the UFO stuff, the ghost things, the poltergeist stuff, anomalous rains. And so whenever Kyle and I, and this is happening to Kyle too, the more we dive into these subjects, where you have all these weird things in your head and you'll be talking about something that seems totally unrelated. And then you're like, wait a minute, could this have something to do with poltergeist activity? Or,
yeah, I see what you're saying.
You get the UFO thing, and like Bramley, it happens to him. He's looking at history, and then he's like, wait a minute, why are there aliens in this story? Why is there a Jesuit
in this story?
Exactly. It actually just happened to me because I just finished Steal the Stars, and there was one part in there that was like, ooh, it was probably that thing in Steal the Stars. I sucked the life out of him.
Yeah, something that really stood out to me recently that I'm going to be very cryptic about was the thing about... in Bramley's book where he was talking about that secret order that established themselves in Malta.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the Knights of St. John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like recently in the news, a very prominent character from Malta has now vanished.
Yeah. Yep, there's weird stuff.
I was like, Enlil!
Yeah. All right, this is from Jordan again. This is a brew pastor.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah. Says Luther as evidence of a split brotherhood? Question mark? Hey there, Snake Fam. Having caught up to Brothers of the Serpent in real time and not being able to consume your episodes ravenously like the contents of the Watcher's bag of chips, I am discovering the wonder in having time for a midweek review of serpentological discourse. I don't intend to fill your inbox every week with my ramblings and musings, but hearing Bramley's take on Luther and the Reformation has prompted me to look back at familiar material with these eyes. I was particularly drawn to the idea that Luther's Augustinian connection linked him up both with the Friends of God and the Rosicrucians, and I couldn't help but wonder if perhaps Luther's whole story was a maverick movement gone wrong. And I kind of think that Bramley was saying that this is what it should have been, but it didn't turn out that way. Right. He says at the beginning, back to the email, at the beginning of Luther's reforms, we see a man who in many ways was trying to begin theological discourse around his new discovery of salvation through grace rather than by works. In a book on church history by Justo Gonzalez, he describes how Luther, a monk turned theological professor, didn't even expect much of a stir in the general public until, quote-unquote, someone translated his 95 theses from Latin, the language of theological discourse, to German, the common language of the general public. Oddly, Gonzalez doesn't seem to know who this someone was.
Whoa.
And then it seems that from there, Luther's bullish and often obtuse nature takes over, and he ends up head-to-head with not only the Pope, but the Holy Roman Emperor, thus leading to the catastrophes that Bramley described. Just after Bramley's discussion about Luther, he mentioned that it was perhaps less than 100 years later that the Rosicrucians were found to display some positive and even maverick aspects of the Brotherhood. I wonder if that maverick spirit was present in Luther's Augustinian order at the outset of his career, but that a split in the Brotherhood was able to twist it into the destructive power that still exists today. Was Luther an undermined maverick, or was he by nature the perfect man to unwittingly carry out the work of a corrupt Brotherhood? More questions than answers. Snakes!
Man, that's great.
Yeah, fantastic analysis. Your brother in fermentation, Pastor Jordan.
Yes.
Awesome.
So good.
Still waiting on those wolf shirts and beers.
Beers for grapes.
And I've got one here from David. I'm not going to read this whole thing on the show, but basically and I want to say this, he's going to be passing through our area and he totally wants to hang out.
Yes, sir. Let's dip up.
Yes, sir.
Who?
David, the
Jedro?
the one he's the tobacco connoisseur.
Okay.
And the Jedro guy. Yeah.
Yes.
And he was like,
Well, now he's a pyramid guy, right?
well, yeah. He's going to be building a pyramid.
That's true. He's
Yeah,
not a pyramid
pass on
guy.
through.
Yeah, he said at one part, he says, I'm rather convinced that because of some of the arrowheads you've curated over the years would be better shaped than my Neolithic flint ship from Sussex, that they would shred soap or sandstone under a jet drill far better than the primitive results that I've filmed. If you are willing to half to shaft, I think Jet Drill version 0.1 could find a new happy home in the tangent cube of science.
That's cool.
He wants to try our flint on his drill.
Hey, we have some of the best flint.
We do. Edwards Plateau has great flint. So yes, David, I'll be responding there. You sent me his number is in here. He wants us to call him and set this up, and he's got a whole itinerary. So on or about June 10th to 12th would be a window of opportunity, he says, for our arrival on the plateau.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think we can do that. Okay. So this one is an interesting one. He says, this is from Matt. He says, hi, and some contrary points. I love your podcast, particularly your examination of megalithic mysteries. However, I disagree with a couple of things said in some podcasts. Yeah, we do too.
I don't want to start at episode 2. 'Cause
We're wrong all the time. He says, my majors were in physics and math many years ago. In one episode I recently listened to, there was a suggestion that there might be a black hole orbiting the sun. This would be like having a vacuum cleaner inlet pipe sitting at the bottom of a bucket of water and expecting the water not to get sucked up. The black hole would eat the mass in the sun and get bigger, therefore eating more, etc. A small black hole located in the Oort cloud is more likely if there is a black hole orbiting our sun, and it would be a very low mass black hole, maybe the missing 9th planet. Yeah, so I agree with that.
Yeah.
If we had a black hole orbiting our sun, it would have to be
Extra. It would not be within the known solar system.
right. It would be far away, and it would be not a very massy black hole.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about that based on the idea of redshift and time dilation, like the weird problems that we have with looking out into the cosmos and seeing all of these crazy things. And we're thinking, what if we're actually in a sort of, instead of a binary star system, our other star is actually like a black hole?
Yeah. And it's messing with the redshift or something.
Something to that effect.
Right.
But of course, it was not a suggestion in a sense of like, that's probably what's happening.
This is totally what's happening. No,
it was just looking at that.
Yeah.
What would that look like? What would it be like?
Yeah.
And if it was, would the things that you could predict to be observed look like what we see out there? That's the question.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then that's probably not what's going on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we just blue sky stuff sometimes. You know, could it be a black hole? No. All right. Moving on.
I mean, I think a prominent news person once was questioning whether the flight
70,
the flight from the Malaysian Airlines flight got sucked up by a black hole. I mean, come on.
Yeah. We can ask these questions, guy. Don't be mad.
But that's cool. You're a physics and mathematician. We should definitely
Yeah. He also says, in another podcast, you mentioned gravitational waves used for early detection of earthquakes. Interesting idea, but someone asked what medium they travel in. And then he says, any wave that moves at the speed of light can have no medium, like light waves, without violating the principle of relativity. Michelson and Morley tried to do this in a famous experiment over 100 years ago. So I suspect they have no medium but are oscillating fields. The mechanism for the oscillation of the fields, I don't know. Maybe I was distracted by other attractive forces when I was meant to learn this at university. Regards, Matt.
That's cool. Yeah, that is the standard model.
Yep.
And we are familiar with that idea, but I still question because we don't actually, I guess, I don't know. What is the difference between an oscillating field and a medium?
Right. That is the medium.
That is the medium. Yeah. That's right. So it's you're right. That is a standard model.
Yeah.
And I just question it, you know.
Yes.
Because I also question the possibility that light actually is traveling in a medium.
Right.
A medium that maybe scientists are saying, oh, it's an oscillating field made up of bosons and stuff.
Yeah.
That is the medium, or I don't know. So,
right.
Anyway.
Yeah, we ask these questions, and sometimes we don't have answers, or what we're asking the question for is because we are aware that there is a standard model answer, and we're still asking the question, like, is this really what's happening? Because they're like, you know, light is a bunch of waves, and it brings its medium with it. And you're like, all right, guy, okay, I don't know. I mean, yes, that does happen. Tidal waves are a wave that brings the medium with it, right? That's what happens. It rolls all the way up onto the land. Mm-hmm. It is a wave that is carrying its medium with it.
That's right. That's true. That's a good point. Its medium has inertia.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Just a couple of thanks here. I wanted to say thanks to Christian, who edited their Patreon pledge from $3.14 to $36.14.
Hey, wow.
I didn't even know that 3614 was a setting. It was a tier. That might be a custom one. Is 36.14, is that a...
Don't recognize it.
Don't recognize it as a because most of ours are some kind of sacred geometrical number. I don't think 36.14 is one.
But we still love it.
Yeah. It is possible for people on Patreon to just set their own.
Oh, okay.
That's cool.
So I think that's what they did.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey, real quick, back to the mathematician physicist guy. Hey, buddy. Like, we should keep talking about some of this stuff, maybe through email.
For sure.
So you should send him my email.
Okay. I will forward you this stuff too.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge.
Yeah, because I need somebody who can do some math to tell me. I have questions for somebody who can actually would know how to, figure something out using mathematics, advanced mathematics. That I have no idea how to do this.
He needs someone to argue with that is really good at math.
Yeah. That might be accurate. Listen, I don't care what the math is telling you, guy. I'm telling you how it works. You need to figure the math out. Also, a new $10.80 Patreon. That's from Wish On Girl, who is also an admin. That happened last night. So thank you so much. That's from Shannon, who's in the Discord. And there's one other one that I can't find, that I totally marked and I can't find it. But that's it for this week for the emails. I think we're good.
Yeah. That was awesome. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah. Great emails.
All right. Well, we will take a little break and play some music, and we'll be right back.
That's right.
With more snakes.
Snakes!
Technical difficulties flawlessly with 0 mistakes.
0.
Here on Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
Powering through.
Live but not live in the Discord. And if you join the Discord, you will get the privilege to deal with all of the non-technical difficult issues that never come about. So you should join up.
That's right.
And we have a 1-up box.
An enormous 1-up box.
Yes. Wow, this is the biggest 1-up box we've ever gotten.
Yeah.
He did tell me it was a lot of fluff. He said that.
Yeah, I thought this was a DeWalt.
Wait, getting a weed eater here?
Hey, DeWalt, this is going to be found in the future.
Is that the...
Laura's pick.
We thought that this may be a joke.
This is from Kevin.
But man, I actually really like it.
This is the guy that wanted.
I love painting.
Send me a pic. Did he paint
Dude,
this?
yeah, I don't know. I'll have to ask him. I love this.
Oh,
What's the guy with the big fro hair?
Watch out.
Bob Ross?
Bob Ross. I love Bob Ross, and I feel like I'm holding something that was made by Bob Ross. So Kevin, I'm gonna have to hit you up and see what's up with this.
What is going on here, Kevin?
He said it was a lot of fluff.
Oh, this is another box.
This is another box.
Pull it out.
I was trying to.
Oh my gosh, you guys.
What's going on here?
Can't get this box out.
There we go.
Okay.
Ah!
Kyle and Russ and the Watcher.
The Watcher has one. What?
Screw the Watcher. I'm opening this box.
Send the Watcher stuff. Oh, hey, here's some foam bricks for the wall.
Okay.
Oh, good.
All right. Wow.
I guess he put it in that giant box so he could get that picture in there.
Yeah,
there's like a big frame.
Some beautiful painting.
On a
Yeah,
canvas,
painting.
an actual Bob Ross painting. Holy smokes.
Okay, so I'm opening up the cube. The
That's
1-up
labeled
cube.
Russ and Kyle.
And a crossword puzzle. Oh, this is for me. A
Labeled
baggie.
Kyle.
Secret. And I think that's labeled Russ. And then there's another box. Labeled
Wow.
I get 2 boxes.
Wow. Kyle gets 2 boxes.
Very fragile, open carefully.
Wow, this is like Christmas in here right now. I love this.
Okay, 1, 2. There are 2 things in this other box.
What are those things, Russ? What do you have?
I'm going to pull up, because I don't know what they are, but he did tell me.
Okay.
Okay, I'm on. These are wrapped in. A trilobite.
Oh.
Whoa!
Fossil.
That is
There
a
you go.
trilobite impression
The ghost
in what
fossil.
looks like a piece of sandstone.
Yeah, okay, so here we go.
That is awesome.
First is the
Wow,
picture that Laura
beautiful.
requested. to help with her matchmaking efforts. Good luck with that. Bob Ross was my art teacher.
He painted that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I think I can work with this. Man.
All right, let me just read the whole email. He says,
Okay,
one
yeah,
up in
yeah.
the cube from Kevin. Hey, Snake Brothers and Sister, USPS tells me they have delivered your one-up box. Excellent. Careful with that knife. And then he says, okay, first, quick description of the contents while you keep from stabbing yourself while opening it. First is the picture that Laura requested. Okay, and then he says, next we have a set of books for the Watcher. Hope he finds some interesting info in those. That's what's in the Watcher box.
Cool. Since I can't read, I won't be opening that box.
Russ gets a nut and a piece of glass. The nut is an American Buckeye. Cool. This is a huge...
That is really cool.
Yeah, and he says the glass was created as the result of the intense heat and pressure of the Trinity nuclear test.
Whoa.
I gathered that interesting chunk of history while working on site at WSMR a couple of years ago. Remind me to tell you that story when we hang out at the Scablands.
Yes.
Last but certainly not least, Kyle, for you, I sent an ancient set of high and low relief sculptures,
Yes.
also known as a Trilobite Fossil, found locally.
That's what I was going to say. The number 2 in the box was the positive impression.
yeah.
See? They go together.
Wow.
Wow.
I think they are the same fossil.
As well as an unidentified chunk of rock that I suspect was flint, gathered while on base at Fort Hood in Killeen, Texas. Also an interesting story. I was hoping you would tell me what it is and if it is flint. So Kyle's going to open
I'm
that.
opening up the second bag.
I hope you have as much fun opening that box as I did packing it. More to come. Much love from the Blue Ridge Mountains. Your brother from a different serpentine mother, Kevin.
Oh, thank you, Kevin.
Yes, this is definitely flint.
Is it chert flint? Yeah,
I would
look
call
at that.
this flint. It has some quartz inclusions, and it is
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's really glassy. It's a light color white flint. Beautiful. Yeah.
Laura, tear open that Watcher box so we can figure out what books he's sent to Watcher.
I'm just over here admiring.
She's admiring the photo, the painting.
That is a beautiful painting.
Oh my gosh.
And yes, these two pieces of rock with the trilobite or trilobite,
They go together.
that's right. They go together.
So one of them is the actual fossil, and the other one is the impression on the layer above it. That's cool. So Laura's opening the Watcher box.
Ow! I cut myself. I'm just kidding.
Look.
Oh yeah. All right, Kyle solved the puzzle. He figured out exactly how they go together. That is a beautiful little fossil there.
It
Man,
is.
look at that.
Man, I'm gonna have to make one more cut.
Wow.
Man, thanks, buddy.
So would you say that's about a 3/4 of an inch?
It's 1 centimeter. But for some reason, I'm using
It's bigger than that.
the metric
Come on.
system.
Yeah, you are using the metric system today. Okay.
Yeah, that is a beautiful little fossil.
Watcher, thank you for allowing me to actually open up something.
I'd say a little, barely more than a ½ inch, yeah.
The Outline of History by H.G. Wells.
Oh.
Man, this is an old book, too. Look at this.
And I guess volume 1 and 2.
Yeah, volume 1 and 2.
Wow.
The Outline of History, so that the Watcher knows what's going on in history.
I like those old books.
Being a Plain History of Life and Mankind by H.G. Wells, revised and brought up to the end of the Second World War by Raymond Postgate, with maps and plans by J.F. Horben. Volume 2.
Wow.
Watcher, you got some tomes there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, buddy.
Yeah,
That's
man, that was fun.
that was great.
Opening that box. I thought you sent us some DeWalt tools.
Wow, that was awesome.
future ancient unexplainable artifacts.
Yeah.
DeWalt
The
tools.
Shamir of the next age.
That's right. All right.
All right. So I lost my place in the book here. I had it open and I freaking lost it. So last week we ended in the middle of talking about Saint Germain.
Comte de Saint
The
Germain.
Comte de Saint Germain. So that's where we're going back to. If I can find it.
I can't help but thinking that we could be reading this book along with like some choice Steely Dan songs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Charlemagne.
True.
I'm sure he's probably got Comte de Saint Germain in one of his songs.
He
somewhere.
probably does. Okay, so here we are. This is the last bit we read. We were talking about how Germain went to France or what. Okay, so he was dealing with the King of France, and he says that the King of France didn't know that who Saint Germain was connected to. It says the likely explanation based on the known facts of Saint Germain's life is that he was not so much a Freemason as he was an agent of the higher Brotherhood. It is also unlikely that the French king understood Saint Germain's role in the Brotherhood network. So that was the last bit. That's where we stopped last week. And remember, I wanted to tell you guys, Laura and Kyle, like keep track of these dates. So I remember I said that.
Yeah,
No.
but I don't remember what the date was.
Right. That's why I'm trying to go back to this. He first appears in European society at 1743. Okay. And when he would have been a man in his late 40s, basically. So that's what I was saying.
Okay.
All right, so Saint Germain's exact activities from 1749 through 1755 are largely unknown. In 1755, he made a second trip to India. He went with English commander Robert Clive, who was on his way there to fight the French. India was a major theater of war in which a great deal was at stake. Commander Clive was an important leader on the British side. This trip highlighted once again Saint Germain's remarkable political contacts and his ability to travel back and forth between important leaders of warring camps. One biographer has suggested that the Count may have been acting as a secret agent of King Louis XV of France when he went to India with Clive. For when Saint Germain returned, he was awarded in 1758 with an apartment in the French royal palace at Chambord. He was also given laboratory facilities for his chemical and alchemical experiments in which Louis XV sometimes participated. So we mentioned last time that he was known as being a virtuoso on the violin. He was publishing music.
Yeah.
I don't know if Bramley mentions it in this, but he was also a master painter. The dude could paint beautifully. He wrote whole orchestra pieces, not just violin. He wrote plays, and
So maybe this guy is actually like Shakespeare. Like
he's like that, yeah. And he's like a polymath or something. He's just good at all kinds of arts, and he's an alchemical genius, or at least he convinced people that he was. You know, enough for kings to purchase him laboratories and stuff, and be and patronize or like pay for him to do this kind of stuff. And then he would fascinate them enough to where the king would show up and take part in the alchemical experiments.
I think Shakespeare was in the 1600s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
Can't see the Watcher.
Right.
But yeah, so maybe he was an alchemist and lives forever.
Right.
And so he's 100 years old now, but looking like he's in his late 40s in 1743.
Yeah. So, Saint Germain was clearly a flamboyant and multifaceted character. One of the talents for which he achieved fame was his considerable knowledge of alchemy. Alchemy mixes mysticism with chemistry and was a staple of Rosicrucian practice. Saint Germain became a topic of gossip in the French court because he claimed to possess the alchemical elixir of life. This was said to be a secret formula which made people physically immortal. This was the same elixir many European Rosicrucians claimed to possess. Saint Germain may have had tongue slightly in cheek when he made this claim. However, he is quoted as saying to King Louis XV, "Sire, I sometimes amuse myself by not by making it believed, but by allowing it to be believed that I have lived in ancient times."
Ah,
Right. So, like, one of the most fascinating things when you read about this guy is how he would one of the things he would do is he'd start telling a story. And he's recounting some historical event, something a long time ago. And when he begins, it sounds more like a historical lecture, right? He's like, so this person was doing this, and Basically giving it like a historical lecture. But as he would continue to tell people the story, he would slowly morph from it being historical to sounding like it was a first-person account.
Yeah.
Right? So he was like, yes, this person was there and blah, blah, blah. And then, they went over here and then I saw them doing this. And, it would like change until that's what he's saying here.
Ease them into the fact that he's a time traveler.
Or an immortal. I think that was the idea. That's what he's saying here with this quote. Yeah, I amuse myself not by making it believed, but by allowing it to be believed that I have lived in ancient times.
Okay.
Right. And like one of the famous quotes, and of course I don't know if this is true, but he claims that, when they were talking about Jesus right before he gets hung or whatever, he was like, I told that Jew to be careful. Something like that, basically. He's like, told him, be careful, guy. In 1760, Saint Germain left France for The Hague in Holland. This trip was made during the height of the 7 Years' War. Holland was a neutral country during that conflict. Exactly what Saint Germain was trying to accomplish in Holland remains debated even today. After declaring himself to be a secret agent of King Louis XV, Saint Germain tried to gain an audience with the English representative at The Hague. Saint Germain claimed that he was there to negotiate a peace between England and France. However, the French foreign minister and the French ambassador to Holland, Count d'Affry, I'm probably not saying that right, had not been notified by their king about Saint Germain's purported mission. The Duke therefore branded Saint Germain a charlatan and ordered his arrest. To avoid imprisonment by Dutch authorities, Saint Germain fled to London in the same year, and his escape was aided by his influential friend Count Bentinck, the president of the Dutch Council of Deputy Commissioners. As a result of this debacle and the unwillingness of Louis XV to publicly acknowledge Saint Germain as his agent, Saint Germain was unable to openly return to French royal society until 1770, the year in which his enemy, the Duke of Choiseul, was disgraced and removed from power. So Saint Germain had a second and perhaps even more compelling reason for making that ill-fated trip to Holland. A letter written on March 25th, 1760, by Prince de Galitzin, Russian minister to England, offered this insight into Saint Germain's aborted activities in Holland. Quote, I know the Count de Saint Germain well by reputation. This singular man has been staying for some time in this country. I do not know whether he likes it. There is someone here with whom he appears to be in correspondence, and this person declares that the object of the Count's journey to Holland is merely some financial business. Unquote. The financial business mentioned was very secret. It appears to be the true purpose of Saint Germain's visit. Saint Germain was in Holland to exploit the marriage of a Princess Caroline to the German Prince of Nassau for the purposes of establishing a fund for France. Saint Germain wanted to negotiate the formation of the fund with Dutch bankers. According to French ambassador d'Affry, quote, his objective in general was to secure the credit of the principal bankers there for us, unquote. In another letter, d'Affry stated that Saint Germain had come to Holland solely to complete the formation of a company adequate to the responsibility of this fund. The formation of the fund was probably the true reason for Saint Germain's and perhaps King Louis's extreme secrecy. France already had important financiers to the royal court. The wealthy Paris brothers. The Paris brothers had salvaged France's financial standing after the disastrous Bank of France episode involving the inflated money of John Law. Saint Germain was quite hostile to the Paris brothers, and he did not want them to gain control of this fund. Saint Germain is quoted by Monsieur de Cauderbach, a minister of the Saxon court in The Hague, quote, the King Louis XV of France is surrounded only by creatures placed by the brothers Paris, who alone cause all of the trouble of France. It is they who corrupt everything and thwarted the plans of the best citizen in France, the Marshal de Belle-Isle. Hence the discussion and jealousy amongst the ministers, or the disunion and jealousy amongst the ministers. All is corrupted by the brothers Paris. Perish France, provided they may attain their object of gaining 800 millions.
Was that Belle Isle?
Yeah.
Okay. Belle Island. Yeah.
So we're talking about the Marshal de Belle-Isle.
Okay.
Belial.
yeah, that's what you said.
Freaking straight up demon. It's Belle-Isle. Saint Germain may well have had legitimate grounds for objecting to the undue influence of the Paris brothers. Saint Germain's mission in The Hague, however, was only an attempt to covertly wrest financial control from the Paris brothers to put it back into the hands of the same clique of financiers whose predecessors had institutionalized the inflatable paper money system to begin with, the very system which had brought financial ruin to France and the consequent intervention of the Paris brothers. Because of Saint Germain's sudden forced departure from Holland, he was never able to complete this financial mission. Upon arriving in London after fleeing Holland, Saint Germain was once again arrested and then released. During this short stay in England, Saint Germain published 7 violin solos. What?
Just like a random fact.
Yeah. He continued his covert political activities after leaving London. In 1760, he returned secretly to Paris. There, Saint Germain is believed to have stayed with his friend, the Princess of Anhalt-Zerbst. I don't know how to say any of these names, so I apologize for that. Anhalt-Zerbst was another German state which rented mercenaries to England, though it never accumulated the same wealth as some of its German neighbors. The Princess of Anhalt-Zerbst had a daughter, Catherine II. On August 21st, 1744, Catherine II had married Peter III of Russia. This marriage had been arranged by Frederick the Great of Prussia, who was a friend of the Anhalt-Zerbst family and, at least for a time, of Saint Germain. So you see where this is going.
It's going back. I mean, he's jumping all over as far as time, though.
Yeah. But we're getting to Catherine the Great here.
Yeah.
This is a complete change of this royal family who rules what and who's in control of what places in Europe is happening here. Or at least in some, it's not a complete change, but it does cause okay, so in 1762, 2 years after Saint Germain's quiet return to Paris, Peter III had assumed the Russian throne. Saint Germain traveled immediately to the Russian capital of St. Petersburg, where he helped Catherine overthrow Peter and establish her as the Empress of Russia.
Wow.
Assisting in the coup d'etat was the Russian Orlov family. The Orlovs are believed to have murdered Peter by strangling him in a phony brawl. For his assistance in the coup, Saint Germain was made a general of the Russian army, and he remained a close friend of the Orlov family for many years. Catherine, who later became known as Catherine the Great, went on to rule Russia for 29 years.
Wow.
So you see that, like Catherine II, who became Catherine the Great, was a daughter of the Princess of Anhalt-Zerbst, which is a princess of an area of, that later became Germany. That's what they're talking about here. Anhalt-Zerbst is a German state which rented mercenaries to England. So a daughter of them marries Peter the Great, and then they kill him, and she takes over, and now she's running Russia as a daughter of a German. It's weird.
Yeah.
What's going on? And Germain is like, oh, she just married him. He goes over there and helps do this. So I don't know what this guy's. It's clear that he's moving around inside of giant conspiracies.
Yeah.
Okay, so with this bold coup, Saint Germain had helped put Russia under the rule of the same small clique of German royal families under which other European countries had fallen. The same modus operandi was used: the marriage of a royal German into the victim dynasty, followed by a revolution or coup, and here we find evidence of direct brotherhood involvement in the person of Saint Germain. What Saint Germain did between 1763 and 1769 after leaving Russia is a mystery. He is known to have spent approximately 1 year in Berlin and was a short-term guest of Frederick August of Brunswick. From Brunswick, Saint Germain continued his travels around Europe. He returned to France in 1770, and in 1772, Saint Germain again acted as an agent for Louis XV, this time during negotiations in Vienna over the partition of Poland. Unfortunately for Saint Germain, Louis XV died on May 10th, 1774, and Louis's 19-year-old grandson, Louis XVI, took the throne. The new king brought Choiseul back to power and took a personal dislike to Saint Germain, so the count was forced to leave French society for the last time. So Saint Germain immediately departed for Germany, where only 11 days after the death of Louis XV, he was a guest of William IX of Hesse, the prince who was to inherit the vast Hesse castle fortune. According to J.J. Bornstall, writing in his Book of Travels, quote, "We were guests at the court of Prince Hereditary Wilhelm von Hesse-Kassel, brother of Karl von Hessen, at Hanau, near Frankfurt. As we returned on the 21st of May, 1774, to the castle of Hanau, we found there Lord Cavendish and the Comte Saint Germain. They had come from Lausanne, and were traveling to Kassel and Berlin." So he's just showing that this guy notes where he is, because this is how you have to track Germain, because like somebody else happens to write that they were in this castle and he passed through that day with some other royal guy. This is how they're tracking his movements. After his visit to the home of the Hessen prince, Saint Germain traveled about Europe some more. He was welcomed as a guest of the Margrave of Brandenburg and by others. Finally, in 1779, Saint Germain was taken in by Prince Karl of Hesse, who was a top leader of the strict observance. Saint Germain spent the last 5 years of his known life with Karl. In 1784, Saint Germain reportedly died. The church register of Eckernford contains this entry, quote, "Deceased on February 27th, buried on March 2nd, 1784, the so-called Comte Saint Germain and Weldon," which is another name he went by. "Further information not known, privately deposited in this church," unquote. It was after his reported death that Saint Germain's true status within the Brotherhood emerged. Not only was Saint Germain portrayed as one of the highest representatives of the Brotherhood, he was also deified as a physically immortal being who did not age or die. A number of his contemporary admirers claim that they saw Saint Germain at times when it should have been impossible for them to do so because of his age. For example, Baron E.H. Gleichen, writing in his memoirs published in 1868, stated, quote, "I have heard Ramio and an old relative of a French ambassador at Venice testify to having known Saint Germain in 1710 when he had the appearance of a man of 50 years of age," unquote. If Saint Germain was 50 years old in 1710, then he would have been 124 years old when he reportedly died. There are, however, those who claim that Saint Germain did not die in 1784. A German mystical magazine published in 1857, the name of which I will not try to pronounce, stated that Saint Germain was one of the French representatives to the 1785 Masonic Convention in Paris, 1 year after his reported death. Another writer, Cantu Caesar, and his work stated that Saint Germain was present at the famous Wilhelmsbad Masonic Conference, which was also held in 1785. These reports are viewed by some people as evidence that Saint Germain's death had been staged, perhaps for the second time in his life, to enable him to escape the controversy which surrounded him, so that he could live out the rest of his life in relative quiet.
I wonder if there's a body in that coffin, or if it's just empty.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think I remember seeing people asking that, and I don't know if it's ever been determined,
or it's just some random sack of bones.
Yeah, February 20. Yeah, so I don't know.
Or his deaths are faked so that he can assume a new identity.
Yes.
That way there doesn't become controversy over his continued existence.
The fact that he's still alive, but still looks 49.
Yes, but it is risky to have an empty coffin.
Yeah, you would need to put some bones in there.
Yeah, you need to throw something in there.
Yeah, you just need a body.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just wondering about that.
That's not hard to come by, I guess.
No, they are not hard to come by, according to this book.
Not for the custodians.
Not for the Brotherhood, the custodians, yeah. Like he says here, this may be the second time, at least in his known life, that this happened. Because if he is the person that Bramley was saying that most people think he is, then that person had already staged a death before.
Okay.
Because he was the son of some kind of right, and it wasn't until the king died and his will was read or something like that, where they were like, "Oh, the king has a third bastard son, and there's the Leopold George. That's who they think Saint Germain was." And that person had already staged a death in order to get away from people who wanted to kill him because he's the freaking
he's the frickin' yeah.
Well, because he's it's all royal stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I think what Bramley is saying here is that's why he says perhaps for the second time of his life he has staged a death. So Saint Germain's alleged appearances after death did not end in 1785, however. The Countess d'Admar, I'm probably also not saying that right, a member of the French court who wrote her memoirs shortly before her death in 1822, alleged seeing Saint Germain many times after his reported death, usually during times of upheaval. She claimed that Saint Germain had sent warnings to the King and Queen of France and just prior to the outbreak of the French Revolution, which occurred in 1789. She also claimed that she saw him in 1793, 1804, 1813, and 1820. A Rosicrucian writer, Franz Graffer, stated that Saint Germain had made appearances in Austria after his reported death and was honored there as an advanced adept of the Brotherhood. In the late 1800s, Madame Helena Blavatsky, one of the co-founders of the Theosophical Society, declared that Saint Germain was one of the hidden masters of Tibet who secretly controlled the destiny of the world. I mean, that's... And we should probably...
What was he doing in 1776?
Yeah. I don't know. He was
in
moving...
79, he was... I don't know. He was in Hesse in 79.
Is this also the guy that was saying something like, or that they had said, and he also stated that he had no interest in lovers or women? Or,
Yeah.
This is the same one? Yeah.
Right.
Because, come on, you can't be dating and, like, moving around like this.
Yeah.
That ain't going to work.
Yeah.
Or
he
living
may...
forever.
What?
Or living forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It said that he had no interest in women or ever having anything with them, which could be... He might have been gay, which was completely... You can't say anything about that back then.
Yeah, that's true. He could have been gay, or he could have just been like, women are going to bring me too many problems. I can't deal with that.
Let me hang out with the royalty instead.
Yeah.
I have a lot to do. I can't, like, what is that? 99 problems with a bitch ain't one.
She said it, folks. We didn't. Oh, we got to take a break. This guy, I know a lot of this is confusing people, and this is probably hard to keep track of. You're listening to this, and you're hearing all these names that I'm pronouncing wrong, and all these dates, and Bramley's skipping all over the place. But the point I'm trying to get across is how interesting this person was, and how mysterious and strange, and how he's able to move around in the top aristocracy of multiple countries that were all fighting each other all the time.
Yep.
And then he's engineering coups that are complete takeovers of one royal family to another, and just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you become that guy?
Right.
That's
And he's
crazy.
raised in the Medici family.
Yep.
Which is already, if it's this guy that Bramley thinks it is, Leopold George. So,
Yep.
staging deaths, appearing multiple times afterwards by random people around Europe who have no other reason to claim to have seen him.
Yeah. This guy's interesting.
Yeah. All right. Taking a break.
Snake.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. It's the third segment, second hour, Brothers of the Serpent podcast. We are finishing up our deep dive into William Bramley's The Gods of Eden. And we're just at the very end here of the chapter on the Comte Saint Germain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we were just talking about Blavatsky claiming that Saint Germain was one of the hidden masters of Tibet who secretly control the destiny of the world. So, in 1919, a man claiming to be Saint Germain appeared in Hungary at a time when a successful communist-led revolution was underway in that country. Finally, in 1930, a man named Guy Ballard claimed that he met Saint Germain on Mount Shasta in California.
Huh.
And that Saint Germain had helped him establish a new brotherhood branch known as the I Am.
Oh, the old I am.
Yeah, and we will look at he says we'll look at the I am in a later chapter, but we probably won't be reading that chapter. He says, were all of these witnesses lying? Probably not. The Brotherhood occasionally sponsored resurrections as a way to deify select members. That is what has been done with Jesus. In fact, those Brotherhood branches which deify Saint Germain, which is certainly not all of them, often give Saint Germain the same spiritual status as Jesus. Why Saint Germain was chosen for deification may never be fully understood. Perhaps his successes on behalf of the Brotherhood were far more numerous than we know. Whatever the reason might have been, it is clear that Saint Germain was mortal. He did die, if not on the reported date of his demise, then surely within a decade of it. During his lifetime and still today, many people have labeled Saint Germain a fraud and a charlatan. Some critics contend that Saint Germain was nothing more than a glib con artist of common birth whose entry into royal society came about solely through his wiles and colorful personality. The evidence we have looked at clearly does not support this argument. It was not easy for an outsider to enter so many royal circles and remain there. Saint Germain's involvement in the overthrow of Peter of Russia was not a petty scam. It was a major coup which altered the political landscape of Europe. Yes, Saint Germain was a charlatan on a number of matters, but that made his political activities and connections no less significant. His color and flamboyance obscured a deadly serious side to his life. His travels and activities tied the Brotherhood to the Hessian princes, the intrigues of France, the wars of Europe, and the paper money bankers. The personality of Saint Germain reveals that when we discuss behind-the-scenes influences, we are not necessarily talking about eerie characters who skulk about in shadows doing incomprehensible things. We are usually discussing people who are as lively and colorful as the rest of us. They succeed and they fail. They have their charms and their quirks like everyone else. They exercise influence over people, but not puppet-like control. They are affected by the same things that everyone else is affected by, and these observations lead to an important point. When some writers describe the influence of the Brotherhood network in history, and when some readers read about it, they envision strange subterranean occult forces at work. This is an illusion generated by the mysticism and secrecy of the Brotherhood itself. Changes in society, whether for good or bad, are caused by people doing things. The Brotherhood network has simply been an effective channel to get people to act and to keep much of what they do secret. The influence of the Brotherhood network only appears mysterious and occult because so many actions have gone unrecorded and unknown to outsiders. The corrupted Brotherhood network does not have today, nor has it ever had, effective occult powers. The world can therefore be remade for the better by people simply acting and doing. No magic wand is needed, just some elbow grease. So that's how he ends the chapter on Saint Germain. Interesting.
So it's kind of like the opposite of this whole grand conspiracy idea. This is just a guy just doing stuff, and it just so happens to affect the world in a very prominent way.
Yeah. And I mean, like, what does he mean by occult powers?
Hidden powers.
Yeah. If UFOs are at the back of all of this, those are some occult powers, right? I mean, if way in the background somewhere of this Brotherhood stuff, there is these custodial powers.
Yes.
Those are occult, I think. Right? So is he just trying to say that even though the custodians do exist, you don't need these occult powers to affect changes in the world? And Saint Germain shows that. He was moving around, acting in royal society and making enormous changes to the world.
Yeah, maybe
on behalf of the Brotherhood. And he didn't need UFOs.
They just had some elbow grease.
Yeah, they just had this. I mean, he had connections somehow.
Yeah.
Or he had people who were paving the way for him. You know, I mean, like, you can't just show up and be like, I'm going to hang out with the king. Is what I was trying to say with this on the last show.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're immortal, maybe you can.
Yeah.
If you studied the human race for so long, you
right.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know how to get into the good graces.
Right. You would be a master of psychology for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have some magical wizardry.
Yeah, you would learn how to deal with people. Yeah.
Wizardy.
Wizardy.
I
thingies.
obviously don't have it.
All right, so we're skipping ahead again here to chapter 30. Master Smith and the Angel. We have seen many instances in which religious agitation and revivalism were associated with the UFO phenomenon. The Hebrew rebellions in Egypt under Moses, the Christian agitations under Jesus, the Islamic militancy under Muhammad, the religious activism during the UFO plagued years of the Black Death. In the early 20th century, a particularly interesting bout of intense religious fervor overtook some communities in British Wales. This incident is known as the Welsh Revival of 1904 and 1905, in which a preacher driven by quote-unquote inner voices electrified the countryside with his sermons. People were reporting all manner of unusual phenomena during the revival years, including bright moving lights in the sky that we would today label as UFOs. For example, we read the following personal eyewitness accounts gathered by the Society for Psychical Research and published in its proceedings of 1905. Quote, "First of all, my attention was drawn to it by a person in the crowd, and I looked and I saw a block of fire as it was rising from the mountainside, and it followed along the mountainside for about 200 to 300 yards before it gradually rose into heaven. Then a star, as it were, shot out to meet it, and they clapped together and formed a ball of fire. It also grew brighter as it rose higher, and then it seemed to sway about a lot, and then it seemed to form into something like the helm of a ship. The size of it at this time would be about the size of the moon, but very much brighter, and lasted about a quarter of an hour." And then here's another report. "The star appeared like a ball of fire in the sky, glittering and sparkling, and as it went up, it seemed to be bubbling over. This continued for about 20 minutes. And another one. "Firstly, there appeared in the heavens a very large and bright ball of fire. It was a much more brilliant luster than the ordinary stars, very much the color of a piece of iron white heated. It had two brilliant arms which protruded towards the earth. Between these arms there appeared a further light or lights resembling a cluster of stars, which seemed to be quivering with varying brightness. It lasted for 10 minutes or more." So it is interesting that in some regions of Wales, the lights arrived at the very same time as the revival. The Proceedings reports, quote, "In reply to questions about his experiences, Mr. M. stated that he had never seen such lights before the revival, nor before he had heard of others seeing them. The lights, were seen high up in the sky where no houses or anything could lead us to make any mistake, i.e. to mistake ordinary lights for them. They were seen both on very dark nights and also when the moon and stars were visible," unquote. The lights were seen at least once near a chapel and also leaving an area where a prominent preacher lived, thereby hinting at direct UFO involvement with some of these people who were responsible for the revival. And then he gives a bunch of long accounts here. Should I read this one? Okay, so on Wednesday previous, we heard about 4 o'clock what happened to this man. He heard a thunderclap followed by lovely singing in the air. Yeah. Another person reports on Saturday evening between 7 and 8 while returning home from his work, he heard some strange music similar to the vibration caused by telegraph wires, only much louder. And that's common in UFO, the buzzing. People report this strange buzzing noise when they're having UFO experiences. Like telegraph wires would buzz, right? On an eminence, the hill being far from any trees and wires of any kind, and it was more or less a still evening. And then a man named JP heard some lovely singing on the road about half a mile from his home on Saturday evening 3 weeks ago, which frightened him very much. So these are just reports of people having...
It's weird that there it's all music and singing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's strange.
Okay, so this is a longer report. "We happened to reach Landfair at 9:15 p.m. It was rather dark and a damp evening. In nearing the chapel, which can be seen from a distance, we saw balls of light, deep red, ascending from one side of the chapel, the side of which is in a field. There was nothing in this field to cause this phenomenon, i.e. no houses, etc. After that, we walked to and fro on the main road for nearly 2 hours without seeing any light except from a distance in the direction of Lambeder. This time it appeared brilliant, ascending high into the sky from amongst the trees where lives the well-known Reverend C.E. The distance between us and the light, which appeared this time, was about a mile. Then at about 11 o'clock, when the service which Mrs. Jones conducted was brought to a close, 2 balls of light ascended from the same place and of similar appearance to those we saw first. In a few minutes afterwards, Mrs. Jones was passing us home in her carriage. And in a few seconds after she passed on the main road and within a yard of us, there appeared a brilliant light twice tinged with blue. In 2 or 3 seconds after this disappeared, on our right hand, within 150 or 200 yards, there appeared twice very huge balls of similar appearance as that which appeared on the road. It was so brilliant and powerful this time that we were dazed for a second or two. Then immediately, there appeared a brilliant light ascending from the woods where the Reverend lives. It appeared twice this time. On the other side of the main road, close by, there appeared ascending from a field high into the sky 3 balls of light, deep red in color. 2 of these appeared to split, whilst the middle one remained unchanged. Then we left for home, having been watching these last phenomena for a quarter of an hour.
That's really crazy.
It is really strange. It is interesting, says Bramley, that these UFO phenomena were debunked in 1905 in an identical way that modern UFOs are debunked today, revealing that debunking is by no means a late 20th century phenomenon. One investigator, in his report of February the 21st, 1905, dismissed all of the Welsh phenomena as farm lanterns, marsh gas, the planet Venus, and fantasies of overwrought brains. It does sound exactly swamp gas, Chinese lanterns, and people who don't know what they're talking about, and Venus. It's the same crap that they say today.
It's interesting to me that there was different accounts of the singing, but that they didn't say anything that was being sung.
Right. Like it was...
like they... I don't know.
Yeah.
No words or...
No words, just voices.
Yeah.
And I mean, could it be something else that sounds like singing?
Yeah, maybe that's...
some machinery that's making a tonal hum that has harmonic principles. Well, I don't know.
It also is like maybe it's just an older way of like now they're like sky booms.
Yeah.
And so, back then maybe it was like, there was like a weird song.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the guy says there was music like telegraph wires.
Yeah.
I mean, who describes that as music or song?
Yeah.
So it could be
like a humming sound, basically. Like we think, because we associate it with electrical phenomena now. It's like, you know the sound of electrical motor spinning.
Yeah.
Makes a humming noise. And if it's got a propeller attached to it, it'll make a 2-toned humming noise, or something like that. Like a drone, right? It's making this weird humming noise, and it's kind of a tonal in experience. It sounds like notes if you just listen to it.
Right.
Or buzzing maybe of bees or something.
That's why I mean the descriptors back then may have just been using songs and music and voices and singing.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so the Welsh Revival was not an isolated event. It followed a similar occurrence in New York State almost a century earlier. The events in New York included a vision leading to the founding of the Mormon Church by a teenaged youth named Joseph Smith. His story is worth looking at. Smith described it as a beautiful, clear day in the spring of 1820. Master Joseph was 14 or 15 years of age, and his mind was in a state of confusion. In his hometown of Manchester, New York, intense quarreling had broken out between various Christian sects, all of which were vying for members. To sort out the controversies in his mind, Joseph climbed a lonely hill near his home, prayed aloud, and hoped that God would answer him. What happened next was probably more than he bargained for. Quote, "Immediately I was seized upon by some power, which entirely overcame me, and had such an astonishing influence over me as to bind my tongue so that I could not speak. Thick darkness gathered around me, and it seemed to me for a time as if I were doomed to sudden destruction." So he's quoting here from Joseph Smith's own writings. That's Joseph Smith, chapter 2, verse 15, is how it's put in here. Just as Joseph was about to give in to despair, he saw, quote, "a pillar of light exactly over my head, above the brightness of the sun, which descended gradually until it fell upon me. No sooner appeared than I found myself delivered from the enemy which held me bound. When the light rested upon me, I saw 2 personages, whose brightness and glory defy all description, standing above me in the air. One of them spake unto me, calling me by name, and said, pointing to the other, 'This is my beloved son, hear him.'" Unquote. He says the words of Joseph Smith are quoted from the book Pearl of Great Price. So that's where he's pulling these from.
Okay.
So Bramley says, so began a series of appearances by an angel whose reported dictates and pronouncements are the foundation of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormon Church. This church is, without doubt, an important institution. Its membership in 1985 totaled approximately 5.8 million people, and the church has extensive business and land holdings. Beginning with a teenage boy on a hill in New York State, the church has grown to influence the lives of many people. Joseph's vision on the hill was the first of several visits that he would receive from his angel friend. The second visit occurred 3.5 years after the first. Joseph Smith had just gone to bed and was in the act of praying when, quote, I discovered a light appearing in my room, which continued to increase until the room was lighter than at noonday. And immediately a personage appeared at my bedside, standing in the air, for his feet did not touch the floor. He had on a loose robe of most exquisite whiteness, beyond anything earthly I had ever seen, nor do I believe that any earthly thing could be made to appear so exceedingly white and brilliant, unquote. Do you remember how to pronounce this angel's name?
I think it's Moroni.
Moroni? Okay, yeah. So the figure in Joseph's room had naked hands, wrists, feet, and ankles. It also had a bare head, neck, and exposed chest. The figure introduced itself as Moroni, the angel of a man who had lived centuries earlier. This resurrected person imparted a message to Joseph consisting of quotes from final judgment prophecies in the Old Testament. He stated that the prophecies were about to be fulfilled. He also informed Joseph about the existence of ancient metal plates which contained some of the history of the early North American continent. Joseph was told that he must later dig up these plates, have them translated, and present the translation to the world. After this message, the image of Moroni vanished in a unique way. Quote, I saw the light in the room begin to gather immediately around the person of him who had been speaking to me, and it continued to do so until the room was again left dark except just around him, when instantly I saw, as it were, a conduit open right up into heaven, and he ascended till he disappeared entirely. Unquote. Joseph did not have long to ponder this curious phenomenon. The mysterious light and visitor soon re-entered his room. Of the second visit that night, Joseph relates, quote, He, the angel, commenced, and again related the very same things which he had done in his first visit, without the least variation, which having done, he informed me of great judgments which were coming upon the earth, with great desolations by famine, sword, and pestilence, and that these grievous judgments would come upon the earth in this generation. Having related these things, he again ascended, as he had done before, unquote. So he this. We've talked about this before. He shows up and says exactly the same thing, and Smith is clear to say that without the least variation. He repeats himself. So Bramley says, this apparition in Joseph's bedroom came and went repeatedly the entire night. On the following day, while he was out in the field, an exhausted young Smith abruptly lost his strength while trying to climb a fence, and he fell unconscious to the ground. Upon regaining awareness, Joseph observed above him the same angel repeating the same message, although a new postscript had been added. The angel instructed Joseph to tell his father of these visions. Some critics dispute the accuracy of Joseph Smith's stories, pointing out that Smith did not record his first visit on paper until 19 years after it had happened. Under the circumstances at the time, this delay is understandable when we consider Joseph's youth and minimal education. To the degree as Smith's accounts are accurate, they are worth looking at. Did he have a true religious vision, as his followers believe, or was he, as others suggest, a victim of UFO tampering? Joseph's angel, Moroni, was different than the angels described by Ezekiel and John in the Bible. Smith's angel did not wear items that could be interpreted as helmets or boots. He was a figure in a robe. However, Joseph appears to have been looking at a recorded image projected through the window into his room. The clue to this lies in Joseph's words that Moroni had repeated the second message without the least variation. This suggests a recorded message. The manner in which Moroni disappeared indicates a projected light image from a source in the sky outside of the house. When he returned for a third time that same night, Smith, quote, heard him rehearse or repeat over again the same things as before. If Smith's account is accurate and UFO related, there would be tremendous humor in it. Today, we can go to Disneyland and marvel at remarkable lifelike projected images of talking heads in the haunted house ride. A similar projection viewed by a young country boy in the 19th century would no doubt be considered nothing less than a true vision from God. Certainly, young Smith's narrative resembles earlier custodial encounters in many respects. A bright light descends from the sky, followed by the appearance of angels. Joseph's testimony that he felt seized and unable to move is identical to several modern UFO close encounters, in which eyewitnesses report being immobilized, especially before an abduction. Other Mormon writings also tend to support the likelihood that Joseph Smith had a UFO encounter. The Mormon doctrines revealed by Smith state that there are many inhabited planets in the universe. This was quite a daring idea for an uneducated man of the 19th century. Smiths added that God inhabits a human flesh and bones body, and that God lives near a star called Kolob. In other words, God is a human-like extraterrestrial living on another planet. What we seem to clearly have in Joseph Smith's experience is another appearance of our custodial friends pretending that they are God and meddling in human affairs by implanting yet another apocalyptic religion on Earth. Harsh criticism is often aimed at the Bible of Smith's religion, the Book of Mormon. It is said to be a translation of the ancient metal plates that Smith had dug up at the command of his angel. The stories contained in the Book of Mormon are remarkable and to many unbelievable. The Book of Mormon is written in a style of prose resembling the Old Testament. It ties the history of ancient North America to the history described in Old Testament. According to Mormon, people from Palestine were transported in saucer-like submarines to the Americas under the guidance of God in the year 600 BC. God was sending them to the New World largely because of the Tower of Babel incident. Somewhere in the Americas, perhaps Mexico or Central America, the refugees built magnificent cities rivaling those of the Old World. They fought wars and were obedient to the same God and angels worshipped in the Middle East. The Book of Mormon tells of regular visits by angels and of their deep involvement in the affairs of ancient America. The angels encouraged their human servants to practice important virtues, the foremost being, of course, obedience. The Book of Mormon tells us many other remarkable events took place in ancient America as time went by. In the 1st century AD, Jesus Christ reportedly made an appearance in the Americas immediately following his crucifixion on the other side of the world. The Christ vision described in Mormon is complete with glorious rays of light in the sky from which Jesus emerged. Although many scholars take the Old Testament seriously as a historical record, little such deference is given to the Book of Mormon. The story seems so outrageous, and the manner in which Joseph Smith reportedly obtained and translated the plates appears so suspect that scant academic heed is paid to them. The question is, should the Book of Mormon be dismissed out of hand? In truth, the Book of Mormon may well be one of the most significant historical records to come out of the custodial religions. Based upon all that we have already studied in this book, the history of ancient America as told in Mormon is precisely the type of history we would expect. Earth is small. We would anticipate that an ancient astronaut, or i.e. the custodial race, would rule human society in the same fashion everywhere on every continent. We would expect them to exhibit the same brutality and promote identical religious fictions. The dates extrapolated from the Book of Mormon for the arrival of the Palestinians to America are especially interesting because they coincide with the dates that historians have assigned to the emergence of the ancient civilizations of Mexico and Central America. The Book of Mormon might therefore explain why those civilizations abruptly rose in North and Central America so long after similar civilizations had already come and gone on the opposite side of the world. This still leaves a puzzle unsolved. If Mormon is at least partially true, where are the ruins of the cities it names? Many magnificent American ruins have been found, of course, but not all of the key cities identified in the Book of Mormon. It offers a chilling answer. They were destroyed by God in a frightening cataclysm. As elsewhere, it was very difficult for humans in ancient America to please their custodial masters, and the Book of Mormon tells us that some ancient Americans did an especially poor job of it. As a result, a massive punishment was inflicted upon a large American region, purportedly around the year 34 AD, coincident with the crucifixion of Jesus on the other side of the world. The Mormon account of this American cataclysm is extraordinary. It accurately describes what sounds like a nuclear holocaust. Quote, "In the 34th year, in the 1st month, on the 4th day of the month, there arose a great storm. Such a one has never been known in all the land. And there was also a great and terrible tempest, and there was terrible thunder, inasmuch that it did shake the whole earth as if it was about to divide asunder. And there were exceeding sharp lightnings, such as never been known in all the land. And the city of Zarahemla did take fire. And the city of Moroni did sink into the depths of the sea, and inhabitants thereof were drowned. And the earth was carried upon the city of Moroniha. In that place of the city there became a great mountain, and there was a great and terrible destruction in the land southward. But behold, there was more great and terrible destruction in the land northward, for behold, the whole face of the land was changed, because of the tempest and the whirlwinds and the thunderings and the lightnings and the exceeding great quaking of the whole earth. And the highways were broken, and the level roads were spoiled, and many smooth places became rough. And many great and notable cities were sunk, and many were burned, and many were shaken till the buildings thereof had fallen to the earth, and the inhabitants thereof were slain, and the places were left desolate. And there were some cities which remained, but the damage thereof was exceedingly great, and there were many of them who were slain. And there were some who were carried away in the whirlwind, and whither they went no man knoweth, save they know that they were carried away. And thus the face of the whole earth became deformed, and because of the tempests and the thunderings and the lightnings and the quakings of the earth, and behold, the rocks were rent in twain. They were broken up upon the face of the whole earth, insomuch that they were found in broken fragments, and in seams and in cracks upon all the face of the land. And it came to pass that when the thunderings and the lightnings and the storm and the tempest and the quakings of the earth did cease, for behold, they did last for about the space of 3 hours, and it was said by some that the time was greater. Nevertheless, all these great and terrible things were done in about the space of 3 hours, and then behold, there was darkness upon the face of the land. And it came to pass that there was thick darkness on all the face of the land, insomuch that the inhabitants thereof, who had not fallen or died, could feel the vapor of darkness. And there could be no light because of the darkness, neither candles nor torches, neither could there be fire kindled with their fine and exceedingly dry wood, so that there could not be any light at all. And there was not any light seen, neither fire nor glimmer, nor under the sun, nor the moon, nor the stars, for so great were the mists of darkness which were upon the face of the land. And it came to pass that it did last for the space of 3 days that there was no light, and there was great mourning and howling and weeping among all the people, and there was great groanings among the people because of the darkness and the great destruction which had come upon them. Book of Nephi.
Sounds like there was something like that. It happened in Egypt, right? The darkness was so thick that none of the torches or candles or anything would even...
Wasn't that during the Exodus?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, in the Bible, it says that the same thing happened when Jesus died. Didn't it say like that? That the curtains are rent and there's darkness or something. So it's hard to tell if
he's just pulling it from those texts and just rewriting it in a way. Yeah.
Zarahemla. The lost city of Z. Still fascinated with that place. And yeah, it says that it took fire and was destroyed by lightnings, which kind of matches that manuscript 512. Okay. The rumblings and flashings of lightning, rapid incineration of cities all within 3 hours, followed by 3 days of thick, heavy darkness, combine to accurately depict the nuclear strike, followed by the inevitable thick, lingering clouds of soot and debris. The above passage is especially remarkable when we remember that it was first published over a century ago, long before nuclear weapons were developed by man. So yeah, but it also could sound like a bolide impact, I guess, like we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So yes, it could have been a weapon, or just it could have been a rock falling from space, or it could have been a rock falling from space that was weaponized. There's all three of those possibilities.
And by the last one, you mean an alien throwing it?
Yeah, like weaponized rocks. I mean, if you have ships in space, you don't need to use nuclear bombs. Just throw rocks.
Exactly. No, you're so right
about that. If you can get a good-sized chunk of rock moving towards the Earth, you can
do some damage.
It's free.
Yeah.
You don't need to build a bomb.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, y'all, watch this.
Yeah. Some Mormons stress that the spiritual teachings found in Mormon texts are more important than the historical information. Mormon spiritual beliefs are indeed significant because they are quite forthright about custodial intentions. The basic spiritual beliefs of the Mormon Church can be summarized as follows. Humans are immortal, spiritual beings occupying human bodies. The spirit is the true source of intelligence and personality, not the body. As spiritual beings, we existed before birth and will continue to exist after death. The true goal of life is to improve spiritually, and everyone can eventually achieve a rehabilitated spiritual state that mirrors the state of a supreme being. Ethics are an important step to achieving such a state, and everyone is endowed with free will. These beliefs do sound like the teachings of a maverick religion. We can at once understand why so many people are drawn to Mormonism and remain devoted adherents. Members are told important truths. When we read further into Mormon works, however, we find that the above truths are given many fatal twists, which actually prevent people from ever attaining their spiritual salvation. And I think this is just what he thinks about all big religions. I mean, having read through this entire book, I don't think he doesn't say any of these religions in here don't have twists that make them that make the maverick teachings that are buried in them worthless. You know, that's what I want to ask him. I'm like, Bramley, is there one that works? Have you found one, you know, that works? Or how do you remove these? Can we remove the twists and find something that works, in his opinion?
Or will it just get twisted up again? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I don't know if you could like then promulgate that religion, but if you could just do it for yourself, you know. I mean, yeah, I'm not talking about starting a new religion. I just mean like, okay, so if he thinks that he knows what the true maverick teachings are and what the bad custodial twists are, well, like, tell me which ones are what.
yeah, okay.
You know?
Yeah, we need to call up old Bramley after this.
Mormon texts state that people are actually immortal spirit bodies, which inhabit human bodies. Spirit bodies are made of matter and look just like human bodies. Joseph Smith said that spirit is a substance, that it is material, but that it is more pure, elastic, and refined matter than the body. A supreme being or God is said to be a similar material being who inhabits a perfect and immortal flesh and bones body. The ultimate goal of Mormonism is to achieve the same state as God and dwell in a perfect, immortal human body for the rest of eternity. Mormon teachings, which are alleged to have come from ancient plates and custodial angels, therefore encourage humans to welcome the grim fate of endless entrapment in human bodies. The Book of Mormon expresses that objective this way, quote, "The spirit and the body shall be reunited again in its perfect form, their spirits united with their bodies, never to be divided," unquote. So ancient Mesopotamian texts told us that mankind's custodial gods wanted to permanently join spiritual beings to human bodies so that the custodians would have a slave race, and maverick religions have argued that a spirit's enmeshment in a human body is the primary cause of suffering. To counteract this maverick teaching and to promote custodial aims, Mormonism falsely declares that a spiritual being can only achieve ultimate happiness and godliness when it has been permanently joined to matter. So I guess that's a kind of an answer to my question there. A bit. And we got to take a break. But yeah, that's he likes all the stuff where it's like, okay, we're actually spirits inhabiting these bodies. Right? But as soon as you hear anything about like, but you should always be like that.
Yeah.
Then he's like, no, that's wrong.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess I would have to say that the hardest thing I have, you know, there's lots of stuff about this book that I struggle with, but the thing I struggle with most is his assumption that he knows what proper spiritual teachings should be. I'm just like, all right, that's my problem with the book. As I've gone,
we need
to
ask him why he thinks he knows.
Yeah, I
mean, that could just be a very personal thing, you know.
Yes,
like he may feel personally at a point where he's like he's got his spirituality, like he's satisfied with his I don't know, spiritual connection or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so he's projecting like his way of looking at it or feeling about it.
Yeah.
Into all
Like he looks through the doctrines of these various religions, all of them that he looks at, and he sees, okay, I agree with that. This matches with my experience. And then he's like, nope. Right. He sees all these problems. Yeah.
And how much did he dive into and research that's not really in the book? How much more does he know that maybe he's not presenting there? So
right. Yeah. I'm sure that he has a rationale for it. I'm just saying that, like,
no, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm not sure. Well, I don't know. You know?
No, I think I understand. It's just he's coming from a position of like, I know what proper spiritual teachings should be, and
I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I get you.
You know. All right. Last break.
Yep. And we're back for the maybe the final segment of maybe the final hour. Brothers of the Serpent podcast, final part.
Yeah.
Of Gods of Eden.
We're not too far over, so we're 9 minutes over. That's not bad.
No, that's
Yeah. I mean, we're doing great.
Yeah.
Compared to lots of other shows. All right, so we're in the home stretch here of William Bramley's Gods of Eden. So, right before chapter 39, at the end of chapter 38, he says, "By the time you read this, many new events will have occurred. Leaders, political personalities, and institutions will come and go from the world scene. Warring factions will continue to arise and disappear. I hope that the long-term historical patterns described in this book will provide an interesting and perhaps useful tool for investigating the causes of future conflicts as they occur. Better yet, we can hope that this book will one day become nothing more than a reminder of a bad dream from which we have all managed to awaken ourselves." So, chapter 39, Escape from Eden. It is natural for people to wonder how they might be able to improve the world around them. A widespread misconception is that to be effective, a person must either be rich, a politician, or a saint. The truth is, one can successfully take responsibility for oneself and one's fellow humans from exactly where one is without greatly disrupting one's life or livelihood. One may begin doing this gradually by first improving one's own life, then by giving help to family and friends where it is wanted, then by joining or starting groups with laudable social goals, and finally by pursuing a sense of direct personal responsibility for the human race. It is important that more people begin this process. As history has clearly shown, if you do not create your own surroundings, someone else is going to create them for you, and you may not like what you get. Major constructive changes to our world actually do not require much to bring about. As a specific example, the inflatable paper money system, which continues to create indebtedness and instability at every level, can easily be replaced with a stable monetary system by merely ending bank-created money and setting up a system whereby money is issued by national governments in proportion to their gross national products and dispersed without engendering debt. Well, that doesn't sound like an easy task to me, Bramley.
Yeah.
Just simply in the paper money system. Right. That's hard. Right?
Yeah, and then you set up a system that requires people that are dealing with it to be honest.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Right. Yeah. The custodial society itself, if it exists, presents us with an extraordinary challenge, as we have seen. To reduce the human ability to meet that challenge by occluding the subject of UFOs and spiritual phenomena with false reports, dubious evidence, obfuscating explanations, and hoaxes, does grave potential damage to the future prospects of the human race. At this time, scrupulous honesty from all sides is needed. Right, another impossible thing to ask for.
Yeah.
If Earth is indeed owned by an oppressive extraterrestrial society, then there must somewhere exist communication lines between human beings and the custodial society. Now this, I think that's important. I am not talking about alleged telepathic communication. I am speaking of face-to-face contact between humans and custodians. Part of the solution would be to find those communication channels and use them to begin negotiating an end to the pain and suffering on Earth. This proposal may sound utterly wild, as it would mean trying to start a process of diplomacy with an extraterrestrial society which most governments do not even admit the existence of, in order to win the freedom of the human race, a race which most people would deny is even imprisoned. On the other hand, some people might argue that such negotiations would be as futile as San Quentin prisoners trying to negotiate their freedom with the warden, or Nazi concentration camp inmates trying to bargain with their guards. The custodial society would need to be assured that the human race desires no revenge or political upheaval. Mankind seeks only an opportunity to work out its promised salvation, and the human race would share its successes with the custodial society. Our goal would be to let bygones be bygones and get on with the future. In the meantime, the problem of human warfare can be addressed directly. It should be clear that there is no true security during any state of war, hot or cold. People speak of nuclear disarmament, but why bother making a small reduction in nuclear arsenals when chemical and biological weapons are produced in greater number? Fortunately, many people understand that true national security is achieved through friendship and peace. Ask any American if they feel threatened militarily by Canada. Yes! Canada's terrifying. All this. I'm just thinking of all the Canadians in the troll room right now. Yes, you guys scare me.
I was thinking of Darren and his be nice in the chats, though.
Yeah. Darren's not as scary. But Ryan terrifies me. That guy is scary. Okay. Or any but the most paranoid Canadian, the same question about America. Yeah. Any paranoid Canadians out there? We scare you guys? Both nations feel a sense of security not because they are pointing hair-trigger weaponry at one another, but because they enjoy a basic state of friendship. In Europe, one does not find the nation of Belgium bankrupting its treasury to arm itself against the Dutch peril, or the Dutch arming itself to the teeth against the French threat. Reliance on weapons, espionage, propaganda, and other tools of war to achieve national security will inevitably fail. Sooner or later, someone is going to build a better bomb or find a way to get around yours. They will recruit a better spy or will tell a more convincing lie. No one's security should have to rely on such shenanigans. There are many people today throughout the world who are striving to create security through friendship. Those people have not been able to overcome several major hurdles. World leaders have their ears bent by intelligence agencies which promote a chronic climate of fear and danger through secret briefings, alarming reports, and grim scenarios. As long as an artificial philosophical difference exists between national leaders, those leaders will not be able to think and communicate rationally with one another. If national leaders are convinced that a great utopia will arise if they maintain their side of the struggle, there will never be peace. Peace will only arrive if our leaders are willing to drop their great apocalyptic struggles and join the rest of humanity in a simple pact of friendship. The first thing that people can do to bring about human freedom is become aware of all the small freedoms they have and expand upon them. In our world, there is a great deal of emphasis on broad and gigantic social, political, and spiritual freedoms. But many people find it difficult to exercise even the smallest freedoms, such as simply expressing a fact or opinions in a specific social circle. The irony is that broad, sweeping freedoms really exist so that people may enjoy all of the small freedoms that make existence worthwhile. This is the reason I really wanted to read this chapter, is this end part here. One can begin enjoying those small freedoms simply by exercising them. As more and more people begin to do this, freedoms for all will expand. It therefore follows that sacrificing smaller freedoms in the name of achieving broader freedoms will actually cause all freedoms to be lost.
That's cool.
That part is what I wanted to get to in this chapter. Perhaps the greatest hope lies in the fact that all spiritual beings, whether they are animate human bodies, custodial bodies, or none at all, appear very similar in basic emotional makeup. There seems to be a core of good and decency within every individual, including within the most malevolent within the most malevolent people that can ultimately be reached, although reaching it in some people can admittedly be a difficult undertaking. With persistence, intelligence, and compassion, it may yet be possible to bring a resolution to all that we have looked at in this book in a manner that will leave everyone happy. There are plenty of additional problems to be solved in our world. Now it is your turn to dream up solutions. Once you have thought them up, communicate them and act on them. What you think and perceive and how you view the world around you is extremely important because you have an inherently unique perspective not shared by anyone else. Say what you have to say, discover what you want to discover, and pursue those humanitarian goals within you, and it could help us all. All right. The final chapter I'm going to read in here. This is called To the Researcher, Chapter 41. Thank you for staying with me. I realize that many of the ideas I have expressed have probably been as challenging for you to deal with as they were for me. If nothing else, I hope that you found some of the information in support of my ideas interesting. I have always enjoyed new perspectives, and I believe that it is important to be willing to express them. Every perspective has something to contribute, but no perspective can contribute anything unless it is communicated. An important fact to keep in mind is that knowledge is, to a degree, a historical phenomenon in itself. Nearly every civilization, at any given moment in its history, has possessed a broadly accepted body of historical, social, and scientific teachings that explain nearly everything. The irony, of course, is that many of these teachings are different today than they were back in the 1300s. More than likely, scholars working 500 years in the future will be as amused by some of our 20th century teachings as we are by some of the established teachings of the 14th century. It is therefore helpful to step back from one's own time and to understand that knowledge has never been an absolute, despite assertions to the contrary. Rather, knowledge has been an ever-changing commodity as it is enhanced and refined over time. And I would also add lost and degraded
Yes.
and changed.
Yeah.
Yes.
The completion of this book marks the completion of my research. Except for the possibility of one revision to correct any errors which I may discover or which are pointed out to me, I plan to do no more work in this area. This book demanded enormous financial, emotional, and social sacrifices that were enough to last me a lifetime. I hope to pass the torch of research to others. Despite its length, this book is but an outline. It only begins to present all of the information and evidence available on the subjects discussed. There exists an enormous body of data that I have never had the time, money, or inclination to pursue, yet it is all highly relevant. I was also limited to the English language, so I barely utilized any non-language English books or sources. Every chapter in this book could easily become a book in itself. My biggest problem was not one of scant and insufficient evidence. It was of being deluged with too much. I discovered that I could easily spend another 8 to 10 years accumulating it all and build a multi-volume encyclopedia from it, but that was not my purpose. When I began to realize the enormity of this project, I deliberately wound it down so that I would have some hope of presenting a one-volume book on the subject. I am trusting that others will add to what I have done by publishing writings of their own.
That's cool.
I ran across many theories that I did not use. As radical as the ideas expressed in this book may seem, they are, in fact, somewhat conservative compared to other theories in current circulation. I tended to accept historical facts, dates, and personages as they are commonly accepted by historians. This may have been a mistake in some cases, but it is the approach I chose to take. A person researching the topics covered in this book will encounter many revisionist theories that attempt to overturn commonly accepted historical facts. For example, I ran into the George Washington Adam Weishaupt theory, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, which speculates that George Washington had been secretly removed from the U.S. presidency and that Adam of Bavarian Illuminati fame, who actually looked a bit like George Washington, had taken his place after his disappearance from Bavaria. Another theory doing the rounds is that the television transmissions of the U.S. astronauts on the moon were actually filmed in a studio. Yet another is that the Earth is hollow and that the UFOs originate from a civilization in the world below. Perhaps 1, 2, or 3 or all of these theories are correct, but because I did not find enough information to conclusively validate them in my own mind, I did not adopt them. People researching the role of ancient societies in world history will sooner or later encounter the writings of Nesta H., or Mrs. Arthur Webster. Mrs. Webster's work were published during the first 2 decades of the 20th century, and they bear such titles as The French Revolution, World Revolution, The Socialist Network, Surrender of an Empire, and Secret Societies and Subversive Movements. The main thrust of her books is that secret societies, especially the Knights Templar and Freemasons, have been responsible for instigating most of the major revolutions of the past 200 years. Her works have provided later researchers with a great deal of ammunition upon which to build conspiracy theories of history. It is unquestioned that Mrs. Webster was very successful in bringing forth a great deal of valuable information that probably would not have otherwise reached us today. All of her books reveal exhaustive work. Mrs. Webster might have gone down as the top researcher in her field, and her contribution to mankind might have been enormous had her own personal perspective not been clouded. Mrs. Webster made a fatal mistake by concluding that the world's apparent Machiavellian source was a so-called Jewish conspiracy. In her book, Secret Societies and Subversive Movements, she devoted an entire chapter to the real Jewish peril, in which she blames the Jews for the Christian world's subversion. This anti-Semitic slant is so strong as it is an anti-German slant that the value of her research is lost because a researcher cannot readily trust all of the information she presents. This is a shame, but it is also a good lesson to any researcher. It reveals that an anchored bias can utterly ruin any benefits that might otherwise accrue from this type of research. It also indicates the need to remain flexible in the face of changing history and evidence. Had Mrs. Webster lived longer and seen what happened to the Jews during World War II, her outlook might have been different. There were many avenues of investigation that I never had time to pursue, but which could bring forth some fruit, although I make no guarantees. I present them here in no particular order for those who might be interested in digging further. 1. This is Snake Force. I'm expecting you guys to do each one of these. Throughout the world, there is a very strong political and economic force, the labor union. These unions have done a great deal to improve working conditions for many working people, but there is no question that some union tactics have generated continuous conflict. Unionization has also had the effect of creating a mild form of feudalism by magnifying the superficial distinction between managers and non-managers and bringing the two groups into conflict. Interestingly, one of the key forces behind the early American labor union movement was an organization known as the Knights of Labor. The Knights were a secret society with secret oaths, just like other brotherhood organizations. Although the Knights later dropped their mystical practices and eventually declined in strength, they played a role in creating the American Federation of Labor, which has since grown to become the major union in America. Questions to research might be, who started the Knights of Labor? Were any of its founders members of other brotherhood organizations, as seems likely from the character of the organization itself? Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
2. The Electric Universe.
Yeah. Clearly, we haven't researched that enough yet. 2. One argument against the idea that there has been a Machiavellian source behind human warfare is the fact that primitive tribal societies untouched by the Western world have also engaged in repeated warfare. This would seem to disprove the brotherhood connection and suggest that perhaps warfare really is just a part of human nature. Let me repeat that there are definite psychological factors behind human warfare that must be handled before the entire problem is solved. Machiavellian machinations merely increase the frequency and severity of the war. Conflicts can still erupt without such machinations. It is, however, a remarkable fact that Brotherhood-style secret societies are extremely pervasive throughout the entire world and exist even among primitive peoples. In fact, such societies appear to be as common as in the primitive world as they are in the civilized one. And he puts all these in quotes, by the way. Quote-unquote primitive world as they are in the quote-unquote civilized one. For example, Captain F.W. Thompson, writing in his book West African Secret Societies, says of Africa, quote, "The native secret societies found amongst the peoples and tribes of the west coast of Africa are many. Nearly 150 of them are referred to in the following chapters," unquote. And Captain Thompson divided those societies into two basic groups, mystical and political. Of the mystical type, he wrote, quote, "These approximate in organization and purpose the Grecian Pythagoreans, the Roman Gnostics, the Jewish Kabbalah, and the Essenes, the Bavarian Illuminati, the Prussian Rosicrucians, and the worldwide Freemasons. In the course of the years, they have evolved an official class that may be likened to the priesthood founded by Ignatius Loyola, the Jesuits," unquote. Some of the African secret societies were obviously brought in from the outside, such as the Mohammedan societies. In many primitive areas, however, from Africa to New Guinea, such societies are native. Questions to research might include just how pervasive is this form of mysticism in these societies? How did the primitive secret societies begin, and do they have legends of extraterrestrials? And to what degree have they taught mystical beliefs that exalt and encourage war? 3. If a custodial society exists, then Earth's history may simply be a tragic footnote in a much broader history beginning long before human civilization arose on Earth. What might that history be? What caused the apparent ethical, social, and spiritual decay of the custodial society? And is there any way to find out?
Now that's something I have wondered
All right,
about.
Laura's on that one.
I was wondering on a bigger spectrum like that earlier on in the book. Like, okay,
Yeah.
humans. Well, what was before that?
Well, and I think what he's saying is like you have to have some kind of decay in your society if you're going to show up on a planet and create an entire world of slaves.
Yeah, yeah. And then and he says in the beginning that the custodians were also prone to the drama and the spats.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, 4. On November 18th, 1978, a tragedy occurred in the South American nation of Guyana. More than 900 men, women, and children were mysteriously murdered in an isolated religious commune known as the People's Temple, or Jonestown. The Jonestown murder, yeah. A large vat of drink containing poison was found at the scene, leading to an initial assumption that the deaths were caused by suicide. The victims' bodies were discovered lying side by side in neat rows as though the people had drunk the poison and had then lain down together and died. However, when autopsies were performed on the victims, it was discovered that 700 of the 900 people had died of gunshot and strangulation, not poison. They had not committed suicide at all. They were brutally mass murdered. It is very likely that those who drank the poison either did so involuntarily or did not know what they were drinking. The only people to escape the tragedy were not present when the 900 victims were murdered. There are no known witnesses to the entire event, and the question is, who murdered the inhabitants of Jonestown? On September 17th, 1980, investigative journalist Jack Anderson ran a column about the Jonestown incident. One newspaper headlined the column, CIA Involved in Jonestown Massacre. Mr. Anderson cites a tape recording made of the People's Temple leader Jim Jones, in which Jones referred to a man named Dwyer. According to Mr. Anderson, investigators have concluded that this was Richard Dwyer, deputy chief of the U.S. mission to Guyana. Dwyer had accompanied U.S. Representative Leo Ryan to the Jonestown encampment on that ill-fated day, and Leo Ryan became one of the murder victims. But Richard Dwyer somehow was not affected and even claimed later that the reference to him by Jim Jones was mistaken. Richard Dwyer, as it turns out, who has been listed in the East German publication Who's Who in the CIA as a longtime CIA agent. He had reportedly begun his career with the spy agency in 1959. According to Mr. Anderson's column, Dwyer replied no comment when asked if he was a CIA agent. After the massacre, investigators found at Jonestown large quantities of weapons and drugs. The drugs included powerful psychotropics. Another drug found at Jonestown was a chloral hydrate, which had been used by the CIA's secret mind control program known as MK-Ultra. Was Jonestown a CIA mind control experiment which recruited subjects, especially poorer people, through the guise of religion? The Jonestown massacre was triggered when a U.S. Congressman, Leo Ryan, flew to Guyana to investigate it personally after he failed to obtain information about it from the State Department. He never lived to tell what he discovered, and nearly every last man, woman, and child was silenced. The massacre occurred during a time when many American newspapers were carrying stories about CIA mind control experiments which the CIA claimed it was no longer conducting. So, did the CIA slaughter 900 people to cover up the fact that it was still conducting such experiments on a massive scale in a small jungle compound? Additional questions to be researched are, what is the true history of the People's Temple prior to Jonestown? What is Jim Jones's background, and who supported him in his early church? 5. Books, movies, and other art forms tend to give a romantic twist to UFOs, spies, assassination, conspiracies, and so on. Are we perhaps beginning to realize behind the romance there lie some cruel and brutal psychoses? A significant problem in any society geared for overt and covert warfare is that sociopathic personalities tend to find a home in government. Sociopaths are not affected by qualms of conscience and often delight in harming others. They are frequently promoted to high positions within agencies engaged in warfare because such personalities are able to attack and harm others repeatedly without it adversely affecting them emotionally. Sociopaths with high IQs can be quite clever in how they harm others. This deviousness is often valuable to intelligence agencies. As history has shown, the more that a nation is oriented towards war, the more it will become dominated by sociopathic personalities. This domination in turn leads to a rapid decay of a nation and will eventually cause its ruin. This is one of the great dangers any nation faces when it becomes involved in long-term conflict, no matter how democratic and humane that nation might otherwise be.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I never thought of that. That's really...
Yeah.
Wow.
Questions to be researched might include, to what extent are true sociopathic personalities dominating governments today? Why do people tolerate them? Have those custodial religions which demand the worship of criminally insane beings as angels and God perhaps blinded many people to being able to see sociopathology for what it is? 6. This book barely touched on the influence of brotherhood organizations in Asian history. I discussed Hinduism, but there is a great deal more to be found. For example, the Bloody Boxer Rebellion of China in 1900 was instigated by members of an Asian branch of the Brotherhood Network, the Boxers. They were fiercely anti-foreign, they massacred over 100,000 people, and they stirred up a revolt which brought to China the armies of several major Western powers to quash the uprising. So questions to be researched might include, what other wars and uprisings in Asia were caused by Brotherhood organizations? What has the full impact of the Brotherhood Network been on the history of Asia? 7. A topic I wanted to research deeper was the subject of drugs. We discussed them several times, but not in any great historical depth. While drugs seems to have always been a part of human culture, was there a time when drugs were really first pushed on society? If there was, when was it, and who did it? And I wonder if there's making a difference there between like pharmaceuticals versus natural growing stuff.
Yeah.
And is alcohol included in that? When you say drugs, like
Yeah, I know. I mean, what did you
Yeah, what are
draw
we
the
talking
line?
about?
Like nicotine, caffeine,
Yeah, what are we talking
alcohol,
about?
sugar.
Right.
These all act as, chemical changes in the
Yeah.
body, but I don't know. He just says drugs. 8. One highly publicized problem today is that of vanishing children. Many children are abducted every year by parents during custody disputes, by relatives, and by strangers. Many more children vanish by running away from home. Runaways and parental abductions are easy to account for, and they contribute the majority of missing child cases. There has been, however, some confusion about the extent of child abduction by strangers. In the early 1980s, the nation's leading missing child agency, Child Find Incorporated, stated that anywhere from 20,000 to 50,000 children were vanishing every year as the result of abductions by strangers. In 1985, Child Find revised that figure down to 600. I called them to learn what caused a dramatic change in the number, and I was told that the earlier figure was really a broad catch-all and that 600 was the true number of stranger abduction cases per year. To further confuse the issue, I later learned that from another source that out of all the runaways, about 3,000 in the United States disappear yearly without a trace. Will that figure also be changed? As the reader can see, there seems to be some genuine confusion regarding how many children are really vanishing. Many children are eventually found, of course, but others vanish completely. I became interested in this problem because of reported abductions of humans by UFOs. The UFO abductions we learn of today are those in which the human victims are returned. Are there known cases in which UFO abduction victims are not returned? Might some of those instances involve children? I even found myself asking this unthinkable question. If the human race had been created as a slave race, might it still be providing manpower, perhaps in the form of human children, to the custodial society?
yes,
Yeah.
it probably is.
And it's interesting how this is brushing up against the missing 411 topic.
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, think about it. If you've got a serious agenda and you can just start snatching up kids when they're young and brainwashing them, I mean, you're going to be
And then
very
reintroduce
powerful.
them,
Yes.
reintroduce them into
That's gonna be
society
so
to be
powerful.
these
Right.
sociopathic government
Yes.
rulers and such.
Right. Or
Yes.
Counts of St. Germain.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
know.
Saint Germain, the charmer.
Not saying that's what he was, but you could see how this would be. Like, you bring this guy in, you make him where he would just, be fascinating to anybody because he has like all this hidden knowledge and, and all he has to do is be interesting
Yeah.
and strange. And then he's got these hidden connections,
You have no idea what he's really
He's
doing.
always kind of like, whenever you're talking to him, you're like, this guy's got secrets, and that makes people interesting to other people.
Yeah.
And he does have secrets. He knows he's hanging out with the custodians.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, you're right. I didn't even think of that, where you abduct children. She's saying you brainwash them, but then you're like, and then you just stick them back in society
Yep.
and they start doing stuff.
Yeah.
They're agents on your behalf.
Yeah.
Yep.
They start creating religions and things like that.
Oh,
too.
man, yeah.
Yeah. Protect your kids. Don't let them out of your sight.
Yeah, now I'm thinking back again. I'm thinking about Jacques Vallée and how he keeps running into UFO cults. He's trying to research like crafts in the sky, and he wants to know like what's happening here, but he keeps running into people who are starting religions based on their abduction experiences.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of times these people have been being abducted since they were young.
Yeah.
And all those pregnancy stories, the phantom pregnancies and the...
Yeah, there's phantom pregnancy stuff too. And yeah, and I'm thinking about it, and like these people have these messages of like, peace and utopia are going to be brought to us by these space brothers, and
Yeah. But to think you're really pregnant and then turns out you're not, that's pretty interesting to me. I mean,
especially when it like physiologically shows up.
Exactly.
And then it disappears, yeah.
Yeah.
And then so in the UFO, I was telling the troll room last night when we failed to podcast about how I've been looking at this UFO stuff more recently, and the stuff is happening. But one of the things, there's this star child thing, It is, if you look at the abduction literature, and just all these accounts of people being abducted, there is a noticeable trend of females who have been abducted and then have what they think of as a phantom pregnancy, and then they're abducted again, and then the pregnancy disappears, and then they're abducted again, and they're handed a baby, with the implication that the baby was inseminated and then taken and now is being shown to them.
Yeah.
Weird stuff.
Yep.
But it's you can't just dismiss it outright. There's so many of those stories, and it's not like, I would say that's not a widely known aspect of the UFO abduction thing. But if you really research it, you see it, and it shows up again and again and again and again. So,
Yeah.
the Star Child trend is what it's called. So should we take a break, or should I?
How many more you got?
This is the end of this. We're here.
Yeah.
We are at the end. So back to what he was talking about with the missing people. He says, a respected UFO researcher of this generation is Jacques Vallée, who has authored several influential books about the UFO phenomenon. Mr. Vallée was one of the first researchers to focus on the fact that the UFO phenomenon has been very closely linked to episodes of social change throughout history. He also noted an apparent connection between ancient folklore and UFOs. Some of the little people in folklore have been described in much the same way as modern UFO pilots. UFO-like phenomena. So I think it just means aliens.
Yeah, the grays.
Yeah, they're little. Yeah. UFO-like phenomena has also occasionally been described in old stories of the little people. One activity attributed to the little people in folklore was their frequent kidnapping of children. Many of those children would never be seen again. This was a major source of upset between humans and the little people. This raises some rather startling questions. Are there any recent child stealing episodes with a UFO connection? Is it conceivable that there could exist on Earth today a child stealing network which feeds an ongoing custodial demand for human labor? These questions are admittedly far out and the stuff of supermarket tabloids, and certainly the most speculative of any asked in this chapter, but they may actually be worthy of investigation by some brave soul in light of all that we have come to know about the UFO phenomena. I hope that some of the above questions will provide good starting points for additional research. In the final analysis, the important thing is to be flexible with ideas, and even to have fun with them. By sticking my neck out, as I have done in this book, I hope that I will encourage other people to explore those topics about which they are curious, and to share what they find. You and I may not always be right. The important thing is that we are willing to explore and communicate. Be careful that you do not base all of your beliefs on a mere handful of writers, teachers, ministers, or scientists. Learn from them, but also explore on your own and have fun doing it. Do not always look for others for approval for what you have discovered. If your integrity says that something is a certain way, stick to it, regardless of any snubs or criticisms. On the other hand, be ready to change if you discover in your own mind that you are wrong. Learning that one has erred is often a hard pill to swallow, but it is part of the learning process. The man who pretends that he has always been right is either an egoist or a liar, and he does not learn much of anything either. Good luck and happy sleuthing. In a book.
Very good, very good.
Boom. There it is, Ann. Real book down. So maybe because the little people are little, that's why it's easier to take the kids, because the kids trust them because they're relatively the same size, and it's kind of like,
Yeah. Well,
Children,
I'm just, well,
yeah. Well,
I guess
children are often shy and afraid of adults, but they will definitely go.
Yeah. So you have this smaller
run up
thing.
to another little kid and try to hang out.
Yeah. So maybe that's.
But I was thinking of like the
maybe
Pied
a working
Piper.
theory there.
Yeah. Yeah. They just pull out their pan flute and they follow.
Yeah. But yeah, if it was a
And
giant
there's
walking up to you.
plenty of that too. Like you look in weird forest lore, and there's plenty of strange piping music coming out of the deep wilderness. And of course, so you're in the middle of nowhere, and then you hear this flute, and then there's this like it like you want to go follow it.
And that's real. I mean, I can be in the house or in the yard, and Kyle has some beautiful jams coming out, and then I just gravitate over to this cube. What's that?
Not quite the same.
But what I'm trying to say is I know that's music speaks to all of us.
Yeah.
So music can be a tool to pull someone in my personal
Well,
opinion.
yeah, look, Comte de Saint Germain is like
Yeah.
this amazing musician.
Yeah.
And he can lure people in to, just, you know.
Great point. He's like, listen to this violin
Yeah.
solo.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is my seventh one.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're like, I'll do whatever you want.
Yeah.
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 I must take you to the king's court.
Yeah. But I do think there's if you're in the middle of nowhere and you know that there's nothing or no one from miles around and you hear a flute off in the woods, like a rational person would be like, the fuck is that? You know?
But they're not going to run away. They're going to be curious, I think.
Yeah,
No,
I would
no. I don't think that's what actually would happen. Like if I was in the woods with a normal person and there was this beautiful flute music coming, they'd probably be like, "Whoa, dude, who's that? Let's go check it out."
Yeah, and you'd be
if I
like-
was in the woods with you and this beautiful
Yeah,
flute
Russ would
music,
be
you'd be
like,
like, "Let's get out of here!"
Run!
Well, I might tell you to leave because you have kids, but I'm like, I'm going to go check it out. I may never come back, but you need to go because this is bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate that, Russ.
And I mean, it's the same thing. Like you see, there's always this the fey lights, right? This is another thing in the fairy folklore. It's the idea of the will-o'-the-wisp, right?
Yeah.
You're in the middle of nowhere and you're lost in the dark, and then you see this light, and you're like, that's a person with a lantern or whatever it is you think in the old story. The person thinks in the old story, and they follow it. But the will-o'-the-wisp always leads you deeper and makes you more lost, and then those people are never seen again. And there are missing 411 stories where this happens. Where a surviving person, the one I'm remembering right now, it was two people. It was a son and his father, and they got lost in the wilderness. I can't remember if they were on a mountain or whatever, but it started snowing like crazy. They were lost. The son got exhausted. The father, who was like in a lot more shape than the son, tried to carry him for a while, but he couldn't do it. And the snow's coming down like crazy. And eventually the father puts the son down. And he says, "I see a light up there. I think there might be a road. Wait here, and I'm going to go get help." And he disappears without a trace and is never found again. Right? So this is the same kind of you follow the light. They're in the middle of nowhere. There's no road, but he sees this light, and it gives him hope. Like maybe there's something, a person, right? And he just vanishes without a trace.
And then the fish that's deep down in the dark.
Yeah, the angler.
Yeah, that's what it's called, the angler.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It hangs that light.
I've watched Finding Nemo recently with my son, so
I agree.
But,
it is
but
very
doesn't-
anglerfish-like. Yeah.
But isn't the way that works is it actually just kind of like hypnotizes the other fish, or what's actually happening there? It's
Yeah, I mean, because the angler, I mean, don't quote me on this, but like it's the photosensitivity of fish in the timeless depths of the ocean where no sunlight ever penetrates
yeah.
is very high, right? A lot of times their eyes are just photosensitive. They don't see stuff, but they are photosensitive to a very high degree. They can see very tiny amounts of light, or they can.
Okay, so
They don't
like
see
kinda
light the same way we do.
blinds them and
it's like
shocks them.
it's like a on-off, right? And so you can actually attack them if you flash a light at them, it will stun them,
Yeah. Okay.
right? Because that their light sensors, their eyes are so sensitive that if you just bam nail them with a flashlight,
Yeah.
it stuns them like getting
Yeah.
punched in the face.
Yeah.
So an angler can dangle that, and it's sort of it doesn't stun them, but it is
Yeah.
hypnotizing. So they will go investigate and get eaten.
That's what happens.
How?
Except not in Finding Nemo. They find their way out.
Right,
so.
right. But light hunting. Yeah. All right. Anything else you guys want to say? Laura, do you want to... You got to do your hat spiel. I mean, you gave... Yeah.
Yes. So because we couldn't podcast last night, I didn't actually get this on the actual podcast yet. So yeah, I'll take a minute to do it.
Yeah.
For my love of the Snake Force, some of my contributions, I'm not going to be in here anymore for a while, but don't get sad. I'm in the Discord, loving it. I'm at home in there, and I'm working on these 33 limited edition hats, Brothers of the Serpent logo, black, one size fits all, great quality embroidered logo. And it's going to come in a one-up box. So you get some of Kyle's music and some other special surprises. And I'm putting all my love into it. So I've got 12 left. I've actually 21.
Yeah, she's been wheeling and dealing.
I've been wheeling and dealing, and I actually sold 21 under 24 hours. So I've got 12 left, and get your hat.
How do they do it?
So you're going to private message me in Discord, and you're going to ask if I have any left. And then I'm going to tell you yes if I do have one left. And then you screenshot your PayPal donation of $33 to me. Send me your mailing address. Do not screw up your mailing address. And when I get all of the hats in, I'm going to go into the back room, put all the boxes together, send them all out. But the thing is, I got hats for the guys for Christmas, and I just want everyone to have a hat. So,
Spent a lot of time getting that embroidery pattern done.
Yeah.
too.
Right. She gave them these people the logo, and then they worked on the embroidery pattern to get the Brothers of the Serpent logo in an embroidery pattern where
looks great.
where it looks awesome on the hat. So it isn't like a print. It's just like embroidered with green and white thread, and it looks fantastic on a black hat.
yeah.
You're doing the
well,
strap style,
Yeah,
right?
it's the Richardson style trucker hat, one size fits all. But the thing is, I want everyone to be able to have a hat. So I'm in the process of getting a third-party vendor worked out so that you can just hopefully go to the website, click a few buttons, and then order your own hat, and it
And
can
those
be
will probably
shipped to
be
you.
printed, right?
No,
that's why
You're
it's
gonna get
taking me a
embroidered
little
We're trying to
bit.
get an embroiderer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's taking me some time, but I've got
she
some
is.
people in our team helping me work it out, and
Okay.
so that's coming. I will keep you guys updated on that because that's my ultimate goal. I want everyone just to be able to get a hat.
Right.
I wanted to get you guys a hat for Christmas. I went to TeePublic. I was like, what? There's no hats in here.
They don't have no
All right,
hats.
we gotta fix that. So that's the ultimate goal, is that you can just go and order your own high quality, nice embroidered hat to be part of the snakeskin collection. But as a parting gift in a way from me, I enjoyed being in here so much. It is the fastest 2 hours in podcast. I have so much more respect for you guys. I mean, this is like hard work. I love being in here. It's incredible. So as my parting gift or whatever, I want to put together these special, I got to keep it esoteric and I got to keep it low because it is a lot of work. So I chose 33. And
So she's ordered 33 hats from this company that's local. And then it's a limited edition thing. So once we have it on a third-party vendor, when you order the hat, you get the hat.
Yeah.
But with what Laura's doing here, you have an opportunity to get a box with the hat in it that was mailed by her, that has
Kyle's
the hat in
music.
it, plus 2 CDs of Kyle's older music, plus other surprises that
Yeah.
we're going to put in there. So it's a very special.
yeah.
One-up box.
It's a one-up box from us to you guys.
Yeah, because we love getting one-up boxes. I mean,
Yeah.
so we want to give some love back. So yeah,
Yep.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
doing. So if you're not in the Discord,
Join up.
you got to get in there if you're
Right.
trying to get a hat.
And it's easy. Go to our website, and right there on the right, you see Discord chat, the snake pit. Click on that, and another page will come up, and there's a widget that just shows you who's logged in, and you just click the connect button at the bottom of the widget there. You don't have to download an app if you don't want to. You can do it from a browser on your computer. For anybody who is like, I don't want another app on my phone, I totally understand. But you could just get on a browser, and Discord works in the browser. You don't have to install anything.
What are you talking about? You don't want another app on your phone. That's what they're for.
Yeah. But people like Darren say these things.
Well,
I don't want another app on my phone. That's what he says.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I also want to say thank
Going
you to all the
OTG, going
love that everyone has given me, because, when I first got in here, I was like, but you guys kept saying, we love you, speak up. And I was like, okay. I
Yep.
started doing
Warm
it.
and fuzzies.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
thank
Lots of
you
warm and
so much
fuzzies.
for welcoming me into this.
Yep.
It was awesome. Great
gonna be-
experience for me. You all changed my life.
Yeah. There's going to be a big BLB movement in the snake pit. Bring Laura back.
Well, I'll pop in from time to time. I mean, it's not like I've gone. I mean, like, this is not the end of the snake wife.
No, of course
okay?
not. Yeah, of course not.
But yeah.
But you're definitely kicked out for the
Yeah,
next
I'm definitely
50
kicked
shows.
out for a while.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that deep dive and that final edition of Bramley's Gods of Eden. As you know, you can get a hold of us, brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com. We love the emails. I read as many of them on the show as possible. Thank you guys so much for all the communication. The reason we started this podcast was to start a conversation with people like you, and you are doing it every time you send us an email. So thank you so much. And if I don't read your email, keep sending them, because I do see all of them and I read them all. I just can't possibly do that on the show. I can't read them all on the show. Website, like I said, brothersoftheserpent.com. You can find the encyclopedia there, the glossary of terms so you can learn our lingo, the snake skins, which Laura was talking about, is our TeePublic store where you can buy t-shirts and other things. And hopefully we'll have
in the
future hats.
Yep.
Also, help us out with the pyramid scheme. You can sign up to our Patreon. And thanks so much to everybody who has done that. You're really helping support the show. Also, there's a PayPal. You can do a one-time donation, or you can customize a monthly donation like you want there, like our patron saint, Patrick.
Yep.
Who has been donating to us since the very beginning on PayPal.
That's right.
Every month.
The patron saint.
That's right.
Yeah, one more thing about the hats, too. If it might be risky to make your payment in Patreon, because it'll try to make that payment every month.
Right.
So you can definitely do that, a one-time thing for the hats on
PayPal.
PayPal.
Yeah. That's right. Thank you. And give us reviews. I do have new reviews in. I haven't had a chance to read them. I will do that on the next show. So give us reviews whenever you can. The best place to do that is in the Apple Podcasts website, the iTunes store. Give us reviews there, and it really does help spread the show. Share the shows wherever you can. Follow us on Twitter at SnakeBros with no vowels, SNKBRS. Join the Facebook group, which was started by Snake Bro Jordan and is now run by Super Snake Bro History Shift. Also, check out the Library of the Serpent, which is run by Jeff. He maintains a library of all texts relevant to the show, things we have talked about, things we have discussed, and all the stuff in the public domain. And then he has links to where you can buy stuff that's not in the public domain. And he also runs our Discord chat, which we were just talking about. So if you join that, he is the man with the iron fist that will smash you if you are an asshole in the Discord. So
be nice in the chat.
That's right. Be nice in the chats. Support the show. And History Shift, like I said, he now runs the Facebook group, but he also makes all of our YouTube videos, and he's an admin in the Discord. Thanks so much to him. And Pod Doodles, who takes our podcasts, some of them, and turns them into doodles you can watch on YouTube. So follow him there and on Twitter. Don't forget about Cosmographia, the podcast we do with Randall Carlson. You can join our Reddit subreddit, r/Brothers of the Serpent. Give us updates. And if we're doing the CAC 2020 Scablands trip, you still might be able to sign up for the second round of that. I'm not sure how it's possible. Just tell Darren you want to go if you want to go. Also, thanks to Where Did the Road Go, Uncharted X, Mike and Maurice's Mind Escape, The C Word, Grimerica, Conspiranormal, The 7 Ages Audio Journal, The Cosmic Tusk. Thank you guys so much. And all of you listeners out there.
We love you.
We love you, and we always have.
I love you the most.
Good night, Adamu.
Get back to work.
Yeah, gotta do it. Snakes.
Bye, Laura. We love you.
Coyotes.
Coyotes.
There we go.